is continuing. And so it's a testimony of how great this event is. And this wouldn't have been possible if not for Bila and Azira and Prince and your organizing committee, which I really, really do want to say thank you so much, because I couldn't think of a better time to spend my Friday afternoon than to spend with looking at the showcasing of amazing students. So without that, not saying too much again, but just to say again, go Reds! Next year, we're going to win again. Wish you all the best. And thank you for inviting me to this very important event. All the best.
Okay. Thank you, Associate Professor Tony Liu, for the opening remark. Now we would like to invite our chief organizer, which is Architect Prince, to share his welcoming message.
Okay, thanks, Biller, and thanks, Tony, for the support. Thanks to Zira and Lime for organizing the event. I'll just make it short and sweet, hopefully. Okay, before we started this event, we planned it actually three months ago. Okay, we were planning for a physical future thinker. So the normal, I already booked the lecture hall. I called on Azira, Lime, the chief organizer, and Biller to join me for several meetings. But unfortunately, there's this pandemic. Okay, so we have to pause for a while and think it over. Should we continue with Future Thinker 7? So I've been discussing it with them throughout the past three months. So I said, I think this is the only time, it's a blessing in disguise, that we can invite people outside Malaysia to participate in this event. So before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the people from our ex-alumni from Australia, from Singapore, and we have some lecturers and my previous professors, I think, in University of Santo Tomas are here to join us, my colleagues in the Philippines, so who wanted to join and see future thinkers. I'd like to thank Associate Professor Tony Liu, all the program directors, the Dean of the Faculty of Innovation and Technology, Dr. David, for allowing me this opportunity to continue with Future Thinkers and to support the students' endeavor. It's a very important event, as mentioned by the organizer and by our head of school, because this is the only platform, I think, a biannual event that we can all meet and see each other like a family. Okay, we've all been working so hard the past few months of this semester, so it's time to relax and have fun and listen to the great presentations given by our wonderful and creative thinkers, okay, from SEM 1 until the master's degree. Okay, I would like also to commend and congratulate the hard work of Azira Lime, who's been working double time, attending tutorials and at the same time managing. It used to be 14 people part of the organizing committee, but they said we can do it as efficiently as 14 people can. So I would like to thank them for the sleepless nights, working on posters, sending messages to everyone, looking at the presentation of the future thinkers, making sure that the presentation are as at par with the previous future thinkers event. Okay, I would also like to thank the tutors who have given their time and effort and their guidance to train brilliant people, brilliant students, okay, whom we will be witnessing today. Okay, and lastly, the future thinkers selected for this semester, I would like to congratulate you. Job well done. And with that, I welcome you all to Future Thinkers 7. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Prince, for the warm welcome. All right, so let us begin with the presentations. First of all, we would like to invite our first speaker, which is Philip Yap. Philip Yap to introduce himself. So please go ahead, Philip.
All right. Can you guys hear me? Hi, everyone.
Hi.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Philip Young from Semester 1. Thank you for taking the time to attend this sharing session. So unlike the seniors' work, our final project in Semester 1 is actually just a sightless project with lesser restriction on spatial program or functional use of a space. So basically, it focuses more toward the sensorial quality, like your experience of a space when you're in stationary or when you're in a motion. So this assignment aims to introduce us to the design element and principle to find the meeting point between our senses and space. And so from that point of view, we develop our design philosophy. So now let's get started.
Hi everyone. Yeah, semester 1. This is a sightless project right from talks about final project. We are assigned to deal with what design found, re-explore it and design a series of sensorial spaces to show our understanding of sensorial quality. So this was our bamboo project. It was designed with careful consideration of fluidity, probability, and reality. Through this bamboo project, I discovered that lines has a few of its unique ideas that other design elements cannot perform. So I wanted to further explore on this discovery and apply it into my final project. So what did I learn from the lines? First, a line has to start with a point, then ends with another. So by purely using lines, I wanted to create a story of also, middle of design process, I found that lines can be fine enough to just conceptualize boundaries. Yes, bold enough to form planes. So my tutor challenged me. What if I can create space out of pure lines? Is wall still a wall now? What about ground? Roof? Leaving these questions to ponder, I started to develop my design intention. So my intention for this model is to create a sculptural model that brings the user into a personal journey of answer seeking. And the sensorial journey I wanted to illustrate was float, search, then found. Float. I wanted the user to be more aware of the surrounding, the constant change of users' vertical motion. Search. I pause some of the journey, make them think, analyze, search, to form a spiritual connection between user and space. I take every pause as the rewarding process of user's cognitive mapping of space. Let the user be friendly with the sculpture. Now, I wanted the user to notice the big picture I created, the interconnection between all elements. We're ending up seeing them as one, then take it away from the space. Now, I will try to run through the sensorial journey with some close-up pictures. I will use some first-person pronoun to explain from space to space. Now, when I step near the sculpture, I see some lines being led by the foxtail. Is it an ending point or a starting point? Let's find out where are they going. Then I'm brought to the entrance. The real step up wants me to be more aware of the surrounding. Then I pause the journey, using some obstacles to require them to analyze how would I go through this. Get into the action I wanted the person to touch. So the space was made ergonomically low, so that the only way to pass through is to crawl. Touch the ground with your bare hands. Now I see where I touch. Where are the lines going? Some went up, some went down. Some I do not know yet. Here, the urge of looking for answers is my design strategy to keep the user wanting to move from a space to another. Once on top of the world, another second, back. Here I see a loop waiting to escape. The lines warn me that something has not been found yet. Do it. Let me just go back to the maze, come back to you as I move. All lines moving around. Mirroring of shadow were casted upon me. It brought me to see how every single element now agreed to form of us. I wanted to have a separated space to recall my journey. Gave him the privilege to just sit, rest. Some stretching maybe. Now I see the whole picture. I see where were the lines trying to hide. I see little details of how the lines map together and disperse again. After the recalculation, I had to make a move. Going back in or going out, I let you make my mind. Now, my answers are found. Personal interaction with the model is finally complete. Overall, it is an abstract idea illustration of one's personal journey to make answers found, with the level of curiosity being taken as the driven force of his pace. I wanted the user to be blinded by lines, blown by the form, moved by the shadows, and extensively experience the familiarity they perceive from a bamboo project. The main design strategy was some relegated, some hidden, some is gone. Every single lines were finely arranged to show the continuity of flow. Lead Now, I'll show how the lines are interrelated to each other. The lines which brought you into the space were then brought to the space below as ground, some walls maybe. At the same time, half of the lines went up to form roof of this space, then went down again to form the structure of seating corner you see here. The wall you see on the left side of the entrance was then connected to the roof, wall, ground of a second space. While the other casts a second layer of shadow in the perpendicular direction. Lastly, the lines you see here are the lines destined to tie all elements into one from the entrance to all of the important spaces in the maze. With four lines constantly converging and dispersing through these two focal points, it created the flow to in the answers. So this is how I tried to express the fluidity of lines and evoke the curiosity of knowing more. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoy this journey with me. Well, if you do, just grab me a coffee then. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you, Philip, for that insightful presentation. Now, before we move on, we would like to inform that there will be a Q&A session, but it will be after the presentations from the semester 1, semester 2, and semester 3 students. So if you have any questions, do save them for later. And now moving on, we will be inviting our presenter from semester 2, which is Tanja Jun. So please go ahead and invite and introduce yourself, Jajun.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jajun. Today I will present to you my Studio 2 project. This project, we have to design a mangrove forest observation unit in Kuala Selangor Nature Park. And we have to design with architectural intentions, principle, materiality, context, and user. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Hi everyone. I'm Jajun. Today I will present you my semester 2 project. The project title is Mangrove Forest Observation Unit, which is situated in Kuala Selangor Nature Park, and my tutor is Miss Faswin. Before that, I will introduce you my assignment 2 first. In assignment 2, we have to design a lookout structure with a panoramic view of the chosen site to frame with in Kuala Selangor Park. My chosen site is Wakaf. In Wakaf, there's a long narrow walkway with a bridge, a river that links to Selangor River, big swamp that leaves lots of otters inside, and a gazebo with a dog. This photo shows the river that links to Selangor River, and I was highly inspired by this view because of all these fallen trees along the river. All these fallen trees classify the salt and mineral within the swamp water content, and it makes a good electric conductor when lightning strikes, cause a radius depth of trees. Otters at the river will use these fallen branches to build dams and find their foods along the river. Then I came up with an idea that the roca structure is for observe others' activities during the happening process and enjoy the beauty of nature in a different way. I start to extract the form of branches to create angular linear form and movement of river to form the patterns of curvilinear, and by combining them together to create the structure. This is the physical model of the roca structure. In the design, I make the bridge into a new structure and converge all these linear and curvy form to form sitting, leaning, and standing space for banner activities. For the final project, we have to design a mangrove fluoride observation unit that is expanded from the roca structure with exploration and expression of light and shadow. I came up with a concept for deconstruction because in this nature park, all these trees and dislocated of branches create chaotic feeling and the absence of symmetry and instability of sense. For me, these massive branches are seen to adopt animal lives like monkeys and animals, and penetrating to give users the feeling of loss, deeper their experience. This is why I start to figure out how can we fully experience the essence of sight inside a building by using the language of penetrate to enhance the sense. For design inspirations, I choose this artist called Franz Klein. Look at how he used stroke, line, color, and composition to create a negative space to be appearance as it forms shapes around the subject. Next is at Reinhardt, the design inspired by his bold geometrics, shapes, and patterns that composition in staccato, designed using his 12 rules of pure art. Then I came up with an intention, which is to create a bold interruption of fundamental dislocation of penetrate mimic nature by developing the idea of fragmenting a building and exploring the asymmetry of geometry while maintaining the core functionality of the space. In the design, I try to complicate the composition of hybrid volumes, levels, and direction to give the users a different view to the surrounding and enhance their experience. The building structure inspired by fishing ridge and supported by stainless steel to create a light and penetrate to the environment and minimal the destruction to the site. The big steel frame structure represents the trees or loud nature, light and air ventilation in the building. And the main material used in the building is chungnao timber to encourage relaxation and give respect to the site. In the space planning, I separate the function for different views. Sleeping areas is facing east, so the visitor can enjoy morning light when they wake up in the morning. And working area is near the river, so that the workers can enjoy the ambient sounds by the river while working. Resting and activities area has a big view to the surroundings to give a better panoramic view to the visitors. In the plan, the space is fragmentized for different functions. The circulation is a long linear U-shaped form starting from the entrance to the end of the structure, which is the gathering area, and move towards to the sleeping area. To reach the sleeping area, visitors need to pass through the whole circulations, and this forces them to view the interior space with different perspectives. Here are some of the views of the physical models. This is the resting and gathering area. This is the east elevation. And this is the hanging structure at the center of the building, supported by suspended cable. And this is the west elevation. And this is the entrance and exit area. The drawing shows the activities in the building, like the visitor can lying down on the hanging structure to enjoy nature's skyline and look at the otters hunting for food and having some activities with them, and viewing the site in a different perspective and levels. Light and shadow. The steel frame structure that represent the trees will form a shifting geometric patterns that showcase both light and void. As light is moderated in parallel, interior space are thematically modified along with exterior and appearance. This helps to deepen the sense and enhance the overall experience to the visitors. This is the end of our presentation. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jiajun, for sharing his work with us. So now we would like to move on to our presenter from semester 3, which is Chia Chen Si, and she will be sharing her work with us, which is guided by Ms. Raihana. Before we start with the video, Chancy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, so hello everyone, I'm Chancy, and I'll be sharing about my SEM3 project, The Keeper. It's a visitor interpretive center at Pawit Jawa. And I would like to start off with like how I actually struggle, as in like I want to pick a site and I actually struggle, should I choose the waterfront area or should choose a junction, which is located at a and it's Ms. Rai who tell me that I should pick a site that I feel connected to, and that my architecture can have a close dialogue with the interesting context as the site. And my space should really give back to the community despite it being a visitor center. So yeah, that's how I started off. Hope you enjoy the video.
Good afternoon, I'm Chancy, and I'll be sharing about my SEM3 project. The project that I work along with my inspiring tutor, Ms. Rai. So brief is to actually design a visitor interpretive center and superior exhibition spaces and relocate an existing food court. First, I'd like to bring you to my site, Pawit Jawa. It's located near Muaja Hall, and Pawit Jawa is actually formed by more than 11 main canals, and our focusing area is Pantai Lega. It is a humble fishing village where the life of the community revolves around the Pawits, which is also known as the canal. And the site that I selected is actually at the junction point, acting as an introductory. Upon arrival, the first impression about Pawit Jawa is the stretch of fishing boats docking, the complexity of the stilts, and also the smell and sea and salt. But yet what makes me feel connected to the site is actually how the community has been using public spaces as second home, and the retired fishermen especially spending more time at the pondok rather than their own. And it's interesting to see the community personalizing their pondoks by bringing in their own possessions, as in they would bring their favorite game board, their favorite book, food items, and also their teapot. And I call them the storytelling pondoks, because as we settle ourselves in along with the fishermen, they'll be very interested to share every interesting story that they know about Pawit Jawa, or even just simply venting about how stagnant their routine is. And you learn to connect with the villagers, and you learn to appreciate the site more. And it is then I noticed that there is one thing shared in common that actually captures my attention, is how the community has been inhabiting spaces. It's not just setting a casual pace. It's genuine because they're not trying to present you the best image, but merely a language on how they pass life daily. And this language can also be seen on how they actually
I think so.
or even up to their very own doorsteps. So I then formed my design intention that I want to change this body language shared within the community as a place-making element and translate that place-making element through architectural language. So why do they settle in spaces this way? And what is it reflecting? So it's a shared social memory of the community that lives along these 11 canals where they're bounded by the stagnant routine, going to the sea and back, and isolated from the outside world due to their working and odd hours. And the body language is also reflecting the kind of social behavior of the community in terms of the unkeptness of the site, and things is always unorganized. The scattered fishing equipments we can see all alongside is actually acting as a very important anchoring point to Pawit Jawa, reminding you that, hey, I'm actually in Pawit Jawa. And visual complexity on the site also contributed by the stilts and imperfection of construction. And the third is the kind of lifestyle in terms of how they own up to spaces. And I then translated into architectural language, using cartoon walls to create that bounded and permanent feeling, and inclination to reflect the unkeptness, and also guiding by certain axes. And I compartmentalized my building and played with depth of spaces. And after I developed my architectural language, then I came to site response, where I draw my grids from existing housing. I converge my plates to address shifted the plates for ingress purposes. And next is avoid emphasizing the connection, the temple and the junction. And the last is to break down the mass of the party wall simply by using nature as green. And I have multiple ingress as I develop my plan. The circulation is responding to the outsiders from the junction, the canal, walkway, and also the people from the housing. They will all gather at my central foyer place before they discharge into the first floor. And the first floor is made up by the cafeteria, exhibition space, and private offices. So this is a view from the junction, and I create a strong emphasis by this access point, and it's also acting as my main journey through my building. But as all party wall design will face, is that heavy impression of concrete fortress that it creates. And as my children is right, it reminds me I need to find a balance between both the sense of permanence that I want to create and also the sense of lightness that the site is giving. So it is then I decided that structure is something that I should focus on, and I developed my Shengao structure. And I actually sliced my party walls to break down the mass, maintaining the same language as well. And the voids then became my circulation walkway. And then the structure came in, and I chose to use Shengao as materials because the fishing boats of Parry Java is also made by Shengao wood itself. And here's the side section where the pitch roof is addressing to the canal and also respecting the housing area. And I keep my section very porous so that to further foster connection and also interaction within one space and the other. And in terms of spatial planning, the private area is facing the housing area and the public zone is facing the canal. And this central foyer is acting as a community space. Also can cater event space, and then the feature stairs and balcony along it. Then cater extra seating places. Last but not least, I will bring you through my spaces. So if you approach from the canal, you'll be invited by this porous building, creating this tunnel effect to channel people into it, and also the structure reaching out to you. And then you encounter the threshold place where you see this fisherman casually settling in these compartment spaces, and you might join them in for a coffee or a game board, and they might tell you a story about what they've undergone today, a fish that they've caught, and also maybe a part of the history of Parry Java. That's your first point of connection. And as you enter from the junction point is where you experience this transition of spaces from this large mass of concrete fortress and rebuilding the structure within that embrace you. And the forest space is also acting as a workshop space where you see the fishermen to build the fish traps. And I maintain permeability through my building because I think that it would be the community actually appreciates. And with a stretch of leading to the waterfront might hint you for your next possible destination. And the courtyard nature is green space, acting as a mind space to prepare you for the exhibition space. The exhibition space is actually a time tunnel narrating the history of Parry Java in sequence, and I make the structure exposed. The story will be covering into this cotton steel walls, and the last journey would be discharging back to this threshold, looking back and contemplating about your whole journey. And you can choose to join the fishermen into the compartment spaces, or you can choose to move in further into Parry Java. So yeah, the keeper is a design actually inspired by the body language shared within the community of Parry Java that not only reflects their pace of living, it's a genuine expression that embodies the soul of the community, and the keeper is trying to capture and keep that.
Thank you. I hope that you enjoyed my presentation and my project.
Thank you, Chensi, Jejun, and Philip for their insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are moving towards our first Q&A session. So we have 10 minutes. If there is any questions that you would like to voice out and ask our presenters, feel free to either unmute your microphones and voice them out, or text them inside the chat room, and Azira will be keeping an eye out for your comments and she'll read them out for you.
Okay, since there's no questions, maybe I can start off with a question for Philip. How did your tutor guide you in your project?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Right, so my tutor is Miss Raihana, and then I'll just give a little bit of introduction about her if anyone of y'all don't know her yet. She is a very strict lecturer, very strict tutor, but she's just like a mom. And under her tutorship, sometimes she is just her honesty is strong enough sometimes to hurt our feelings, but it's actually for our own good. So just maybe like I'll explain how she tutor me. She's just like a walking dictionary. Sometimes when I show my progress model, then I explain my intention. And then she'll somewhat just throw me a word or picture that is powerful enough to change a lot of my thinking direction. So I think it is this individual is very impactful to my model also, and I learned a lot from her. And I is super grateful to have this tutor, Miss Fry, to be my tutor. Yeah. I would say me and her that we are in a love-hate relationship. Sometimes we find it hard, but most of the time it ends up well. She's a very good tutor. Right. That's all for me.
Thank you, Philip. We have another question from Dr. Siti Nurzaini. Hi students, congratulations on the presentation. What is the most challenging task in expressing the concept into the design project? I think Jiajun can answer this one for your project.
No, I think the question is for Chen Si.
From Dr. Siti, is it?
Yeah, the question for Chen Si is from Jia Pei, which we will move on to that question first. But I think before that, let's answer Dr. Siti's question first.
Yeah. Jiajun, can you answer?
Yeah, actually, at first, I've many mock-up model before this final design. It's like I've never these deconstructions I've never made before. Until Miss Faswin, my tutor, introduced to me. I think the most challenging part is because I never made this before, but I know what is metaphysics art. Metaphysics art is like this kind of art has a like dreamy feel of like a visionary world of mind and a strong contrast in contrast of light and shadow to create a sense of delocations and location in space and times. Because I know this kind of art before, so when Miss Fabi introduced me these deconstructions, I kind of like just apply this kind of style into my kind of deconstructions, like just deconstruct the elements of design based on my own interpretations. Yeah, I think this is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Sorry, thank you, Jiajun.
Thank you, Jiajun. Moving on, we have a question from Tanja Pei in semester 5. So Jia Pei's question is for Chen Si, which presented her semester 3 work. So what Jia Pei is wondering is, as it mentioned, there is an uncapped language of the street and the communities item. Jia Pei's question for Chen Si is that how does it relate to the spatial experience to the users as the building is rather contrasting to the existing neighboring buildings? So Chen Si, can you answer the question?
So in terms of the uncapped is how I translate it into the inclination. in terms of how I break my mess using the exact same language and how I form my structure. So if you ask me how does it relate to spatial experience, I would say that it's the transition point where you see the building from far. It's something it's a concrete fortress, like I say. It's giving you that very bounded feeling, and that structure, as you transition into the foyer space, the lightness of the structure is the part where I want to assimilate the people, and that's how it relates to the spatial experience. And yeah, I hope that answered your question.
我要睡觉。
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Siti, as well as Jape, for asking the question, and thank you, Jiajun, Philip, and Chen Si for answering. Now, before we move on, are there any questions left?
Feel free to comment in the chat.
Yeah.
We have another question from Chen Li Yu for Chen Si. In your opinion, what are the advantages or disadvantages of using hand sketch presentation?
Okay, so as I entered semester 3, I was prepared to do digital stuff because I kind of like to explore digital collage. So I was doing digital during the site analysis part. So most of the photos and collage came from there. And it was Miss Rai who told me that it's a fishing village where things is very contextual, and in terms of the sketching, I think it helps me when I was thinking, and especially at the initial stage, how I come up with this body language idea is when I was sketching my section. Literally all the humans that I draw is at this exact same language, and it's Miss Rai who actually tell me that Chancy, your sketches is trying to tell you something, and why not you uncover your concept or your spatial quality from that point. So sketch helped me to think, but I didn't share my progress model out because they were all in KL. But I also think that sketching and modeling both works hand in hand. So yeah, I think sketch helps you to develop initial ideas and concept. Thank you, sir, for asking.
Okay, as we still have 5 minutes of Q&A session left, if you do have any questions, the audience, please feel free to voice them out before we move on. Thank you.
I missed out one of the question as in the disadvantage. Can I just add in?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so disadvantage about manual drawing is slow. Your time management needs to be like very good because you need to complete your models as soon as possible. And if you render it, you don't need to redraw like I'm not sure, like I think that it's the time management in terms of if you hand sketch and you can't really change anything once you draw it down. And you need space to do every of your drawings and scanning and then the post-production. But I think in terms of visually, it depends on your overall what you want to convey through your drawing. So if it's a fishing village, to me the complexity of the village is something that I want to bring out in terms of the context. It will be much faster because I don't need to cat every single little thing. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Hi, I have a question for Philip. Yeah. So, Philip, may I know like how you actually usually get your inspiration from?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Where you actually get your inspiration from?
Okay, so for every single project I've done previously, the way I get inspiration is a bit different. It's not, because for this project, right, we don't have a site, so we don't have any information to refer to. So this project, our only inspiration is just from our bamboo project, which is the picture I've shown in the video. That was our bamboo project. So from that bamboo project, the element that I found is the most interesting is the line. So how did I utilize the powerfulness of line to make our final project? Is I look into the definition of lines. What are the properties of lines I can create out of just using line because of the challenge of my tutor. So I start from that. So and also because of the definition, I came to realize that lines has to have a story. So by utilizing this definition, I started to imagine what kind of spaces I would like to create by the property of curve, the continuity of the continuity potential of a line can do. So this is how I came to know the potential of lines. Then I run through again the comments of my tutor that she asked me to imagine the space first, then only I create a space. It's not like testing the space first, then only I tell what it is. So that's my way of getting inspiration. And also I think one more interesting to point out is that because for this project, right, I don't really have a case study or any reference, at least at my horizon of knowledge. So me and my tutor, we had a really interesting way of communicating is because it's lines, right? So we use our hands. So I'll just demonstrate. So I'll just, the time when I explain to her, like I'll just go, okay, so the space should go like this. And then she'll just come, oh no, Philip, you forgot about this space that you created previously. So this is how we communicate and then came out with this scheme of design. Yeah, it's a fresh experience for me. Yeah, I think that's helped.
Thanks, Philip, for the sharing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think that would be the end of our first Q&A session. Thank you everyone for asking questions, as well as thank you Philip, Jejun, and Chancy for answering them. Now moving on to the second half of our degree presentation, we will have Jin Yong to share his presentation with us. So before that, Jin Yong, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jin Yong from semester 5, and I'll be presenting my semester 4 work, which is a early year center. My tutor is actually Miss Dr. Suchi. Yeah, and let's look into the video.
Hi, I'm Jin Yong from semester 5, and I'll be presenting my studio final for semester 4. For this semester, we are being assigned to design an early year center, which is a preschool facility. The site that was given to us is a park in PGS 7 located within Wat Nasan Way. The site is a regular park that facilitates recreational activity for the residents of PGS 7. This park is surrounded by double-story terraces with LDP highway on the west park. Northeast side has another park with basketball and futsal court where most of the users are youngsters. Other activities around the site are like food vendors, educational and religious activity, lion dance training, and weddings. Whereas our site itself, users are of a wider age ranging from children playing at the playground, elderly using outdoor gym facilities, and joggers from every age. Others activity like strolling, cycling, and dog walking can be seen on the site. This is a section that helps to give a clearer idea of the site by showing the relationship of the site within the site context. Section A is a card from the west to east where you can see the park is just right beside the busy high traffic LDP highway. so noise would be an issue to take into consideration. The site itself is contoured with small hills with a height of 1+ meters at several parts of the park. And that became a thing to respond during the design process. Maybe is a cut from the north to the south, showing the relationship of the park with the residential houses. The road on the right side is an entrance from the LTP highway into the neighborhood, which drives the placement of the entrance later on in the kindergarten design. Our specific site given is on top right end of the park, which is the hardest part. Is fairly near to the entrance of the houses on the right side. This indicates the design must consider the noise of the road and also the frontage of the houses. After the site analysis, I've noticed like the park is a green pocket of the neighborhood, so greeneries are one of the main factors that attracts the users. And these greeneries and natural contours are the things that I've decided to preserve and celebrate, so the implementation of green into the building design became one of the foundation of the design intention. Before designing the kindergarten, I've tried to recall what I experienced in the local kindergarten I used to attend, but the kindergartens are usually normal housing terraces that converts into educational spaces, but it often doesn't serve a good enough environment for learning, in my opinion. So after researching some successful case studies from the West, I found some kindergartens from the Nordic country and especially kindergartens from the Finland, where the children spend most of the time playing from around 3 to 6 years old. But the idea was learning through playing to teach the kids more on practical daily skills and soft skills. The results were astonishing, where the kids are among the smartest in the world. So this inspired me to implement playful elements into design in order to encourage learning through play. Moving on to the project brief, the requirements are 6 meter setback, 12 meter buffering zone for the green zone of the kindergarten. The building height must be around 2 to 3 stories and with approximately 900 square meters of floor area. Cluster typologies were encouraged for the design. The design intention was easy, basically a combination of learning, playing, and nature in the design. 3 of the main behaviors of children during the process of learning through play are crawling, climbing, and running in spaces. This diagram shows how I transformed the design intention into spaces and how I laid them together. Basically having nature as the core and playing space surrounding it with the learning space attaching. So it forms a learning space with playful and nature elements. For the interior spatial arrangement and experience, I've decided to use mimicking nature to form spaces. The first of the 5 strategies, the mountain, essentially spaces dedicated for classes where communications and teachings happen. Caves, spaces with intimacy and enclosure for concentrating or to hide. Campfire, a situation where the kids can gather or collaborative work or even meetings can be held. Hands-on spaces like garden where physical activities happen. Lastly, the watering hole where the main circulation and basically like the intersections for gathering. This next slide shows the continuum of play, or you can understand it as the intensity of playing. Basically like free play, which is child-led, guided play, which is child-led and scaffolded by adults. Lastly, direct instruction, which are frameworks designed by adults, rules, and mainstream, basically like classes. So for start response, basically influenced by the previous analysis, firstly like the unlocking the grid, breaking the initial grid of the neighborhood by pulling a diagonal axis from the basketball court to the park itself. So having a frontage with a view towards the other park and the other towards the given park. By doing this, one of the facade will be facing the entrance to the neighborhood, giving a sense of welcoming. For climate response, the sites are positioned to draw in prevailing wind, causing crosswind and stagnant ventilation to happen. Wind tunnel by opening up a void or a corridor in the middle of the building to channel wind into the inner side of the space. By opening up a void, it creates an effect inviting the nature into the space, causing a green corridor. Buildings separating into two blocks with a public and a private side for different functions. Finally, a juxtapose of exterior and interior form. The rigid form from the exteriors inspired by the outside neighborhood features, and the curvature interior with greeneries to mimic nature. So these are sustainable features integrated into the design. So firstly, fenestration open up for cross ventilation. Green corridor or void that channels wind, causing both cross and stack ventilation. The middle void allows natural daylighting to enter the space, minimizing the energy consumption during the daytime. Double skin facade used to filter direct sunlight into the space in order to ease the thermal comfort for the users. Lastly, overhanging roof in some parts of the building to provide shading for the users. To sum up the design intentions and strategies, theme and narrative, basically locating in the heart of PGS7, the kindergarten act as a node of the community, using diagonal grid to break up the existing community grid in order to inject new energy to the community. It has to provide the users, the children, a sense of new experience for them to learn through exploration with unconventional spaces and design. Introducing the idea of learn, play, and nature to break up the conventional learning pedagogy, and introduce the idea of play-based learning. Using the concept of mimicking natural landscape in the space to allow sense of emergence into the nature. Going on to the drawings, this is my ground floor plan, and I'll walk you through the spaces. So entering the site, these are arrows indicating the entry and exit point of the building. A ramp was designed as the elevated drop-off zone because the entire building is built on stilts in order to preserve the second contour. This elevated drop-off zone allows the parents to see their children entering the kindergarten. As the user enters the space, they have the option to either go to the former side of the space where the admin and LB meeting rooms are located. On the right side, it will be an entrance for the kids where they can directly get into the learning space, and there is a multi-purpose hall located there. If the users walk straight into the entrance, the users would be guided directly into the green corridor space, the space where it acts as a gathering or playing space for the users, and having a loop allow the kids to play freely in the space. Right next to this green corridor space is a cascading seating area where the campfire situation happens. The nursery classrooms are placed on the west side of the building where the kids can get a good view towards the park and to have a closer relationship with nature while studying. Lunchroom located right beside the learning space for easy access, and it's beside the toilet for the kids to clean up themselves after lunch. Lastly, the green parts or the highlighted area are the vertical circulation of the kindergarten. This is a rendering of my exterior, and there's a carve-out space which is the entrance of the building. Moving in, this is the entrance where you can see on the left side is the admin side, and on the right side is actually the learning side of the building. And directly in front of you, it's actually a path that leads you towards the green corridor. Moving into the corridor space, you will see an open space for the kids to play. And inside this green corridor space, there's two existing trees from the park itself, and there's two slides that the kids can slide down from level 1. Right next to the green corridor space is a cascading seatings, basically where the campfire situation happened. So collaborative work or meetings or teaching can be happening here. Right beside this cascading seatings is actually a nursery classroom where the mountain features is actually integrated into the design for playful learning. And on the left is actually a slide where the kids can slide down from the level 1. Circular holes are punctured to form doors or openings to give a sense of playfulness. This is basically a render that shows the outside or outdoor space beside the building where the kids can come up occasionally if they have any other activities. Coming up from the stairs at the formal side or public side of the building is a family meeting room, which is near the functions for easy access. Right next to it is a continuation of loop decking area where kids can play and have slides to complement the playing experience. Having a route that connects the loop to the indoor play gym where kids can experience an undulating surface and a climbing wall in it. On the learning side of things, there's a classroom and a lunchroom that's attached to each other. In between them is a sliding feature for kids to slide down without using the conventional stairs. The spaces are connected to the central loop by design pivot doors to increase the permeability of the space to blur the boundary between the interior and exterior green spaces. Rendering of the loop, which is a watering hole situation for intersection and also a transitional space. And as you can see, like the kids can run around and play, and with a slide complemented for the playing experience. This is another perspective of the loop where you see from the staff room towards the middle of the space where the teachers can gain supervision over the kids. A rendering of classroom 2 on level 1 that shows a mountain feature built in for playful learning. This is a rendering of the indoor play gym with a undulating surface and climbing feature and having circular holes punctured for views towards the green courtyard. Moving on to the last floor, which is the second floor, after exiting from the stairs, is a open space with green roof implemented in the design to provide a roof garden experience where the kids can learn to plant and enjoy nature even on the highest point of the building. The classroom located at the highest floor is dedicated for older kids where more learning than playing is involved. A bridge is placed at the central to connect both sides of the building, and it leads to the teacher or staff room. The room is located at the highest point for better supervision of the kids in space. And again, the slide for kids to slide down, and the connection of each phases and the views. See the rendering of the last classroom at level 2, and as you can see, the features are more learning based and less play based compared to the rest of the classrooms. Moving out from the classrooms are these rooftop gardens where the kids can learn on hands-on skills like planting and at the same time enjoy greeneries at the highest point of the building. This is section A of the building that shows the relationship of the public and also the private side of the building, and having a green space as the core of the building that separates both of the site, and 2 existing trees in the middle that was preserved, and the idea was building the space around the trees. So section BB shows a undulating surface on the indoor play gym with a climbing feature that kids can access from the ground floor. This undulating surface then became the setting of the multipurpose hall. And right next to it is, to the climbing wall, is a resting or sitting area for the parents that visits the kindergarten, or a reading area for picking up the kids. Next, I will be using elevations to explain about the facade design. On this is elevation. It shows the carving of facade on the lower part to form entry and view out points. The lines takes on a random manner to give a sense of mimicking the cave spaces. Circular openings is then open up for fenestration in a playful manner, intending to create a more intriguing and playful facade. Lastly, the highlighted space indicates the main entrance of the kindergarten. The outer skin is a series of louvers that provide privacy for the space, yet providing porosity for the inner space to have a view towards the outside. The latter part shows the facade around the roof garden with a wider opening compared to the louvers at the lower part. It's connected directly to the louvered pergola that acts as a shading device for the roof garden. On this elevation shows the opening that invites the greeneries from the park into the building. The idea was not just having the park around the building, but also bringing the park into the building itself. Lastly, the vast elevation that shows a large car space for the learning side of the building that open up more towards the park, and there are openings that provide views and vistas for the kids while learning. This is the exploded isometric that shows the relationship of the structure, the floor itself, and also the facade. It's a sectional detail of my building that shows the detailing of the green roof and also the structure that I've selected. Basically glue lamp beams and also columns. For the interior finishing are mostly timber, a warmer color to create a comfortable natural environment for kids, where research tell that kindergarten with natural materials help children to learn better. And not only having the right environment for the children to study, and also going with my concept, which is to break away from cold surroundings. In conclusion, the intention of this kindergarten design is to create an ideal learning environment with playful and natural elements to encourage the idea of learning through playing with the appreciation of nature since young. This is the end of my presentation on my attempt of semester 4 final kindergarten design, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jin Yong, for his insightful presentation, which is tutored by Dr. Siti Noorzaini. Now, before we move on, we would like to encourage the audience to invite their classmates, their colleagues, or their friends to join in the forum, as we still have presenters on this lineup. Now, next up, we will move on towards the semester 5 presentation, where we will invite our speaker, Loy Chi-woon, to share her project with us, which is led and guided by Mr. Caleb Chan. So before we move on, Loy, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Biller. So good afternoon to lecturers, guests, and my fellow friends. Thank you for having me today. I'm Loy, and I'm looking forward to share with you about my semester 5 project of a Learning Arts Center, guided by tutor Mr. Caleb. So in short, the design philosophy is shown through the building by its emphasis on the climate, local condition, culture, and the needs and demands of the users, while also considering the approach of the sustainable attributes throughout the process of architectural design. Thank you.
The given site context. A disconnected island. The given site context is in the few urban block and corner lot at Klang, Jalan Station 1, where the existing site is currently an actual parking spaces for the community right in front of the streets of Station 1. In order to understand the site and its context better, I'll give an overview with glimpse of Klang. Back in the 1880s, Klang Civil War had changed the British policy of non-intervention, where the British were involved in modern infrastructure and services, such as the railway station. Then, in the 1980s, after the golden age of Klang, where the centre of Klang were developed to become an active commercial town, with colonial influences of architectural style of the townscape. With that, along the development of automobiles in Malaysia, the people started to move out of shophouses and settled down in the neighboring residential facilities. And in 2020 today, with blooming neighboring cities development, the young people are leaving Klang for better opportunities. The development and activity level of Klang fell stagnant. There were distinctive edges that divides the site, which is reinforced by the physical edges or the vehicular paths, and Klang River at the town of Klang.
Presence of multiple unutilized alleys and back lanes have intensified the disconnections. Then, deformed enclosures have resulted in an island effect. Also, the railway station and colonial influenced shophouses are still present until today. Moreover, there were landmarks at the town located at different districts, with the various functions that were acting as a sign and point reference to the communities and visitors. The signs shows the distinctive characters of site portraying its own significant attributes. The signs and function of landmarks includes transportation hub, Malay and Indian institutions, traditional Chinese kopitiams of old shophouses, and religious building of Islamic mosques. Furthermore, strategic focus points of nodes can be seen being accessed and visited by the community and visitors, often contrast and higher rate of density of people, especially at the upper sections of the site. The nodes mainly fall on the category of temporary node, where spaces were only allowed to be accessed within a certain time limit, so that the activities occurs at the nodes can be concluded under the necessary and optional activities. The strategic focus points include traditional Chinese kopitiams of shophouses, which are popular among the elderly community and visitors, Malay food store, which is located at the existing site area, and transportation hub of KTM station, which is mainly utilized by the working community and foreign workers on daily basis. The main purposes were just come and go and daily routine. In summary, the main contextual issue at the site are, first, confined boundary. The urban form were in the form of confinements, where the boundary of enclosed walls and unutilized narrow alleys have kept the connectivity within its layer. Second, grey over green. Absence of open public spaces that can be shared by the communities have resulted in people tend to come and go rather than linger within. Third, fading away. Living of the younger generations and unappreciated place memories have magnified the segregation of the community. Fourth, living in a stagnant dream. As the senior shop owners of the shophouses tend to hope for new life and revitalization at the area, however, focusing on individual daily routine were still being emphasized alternately. At the same time, to look closely, the main contextual significance were in fact portraying the art and traditional cultural attributes at site, with the presence of painted rainbow alley, wall art and sculptures, multiple cultural identity, and existing old artisans. The town is slowly fading away. How long does it have to be this way? After site investigation, the brief of the project were required to be considered, from designing within an urban block site to addressing user needs, detailing of facade, context and composition, architectural responses, integrating lighting and acoustic design, implementation of design codes, and development of design. Klang Learning Art Center. As time has passed, area around Jalan Station 1, Klang, have become a quiet part of town. Function of town are diminishing and gradually being forgotten. The existing communities seems to only focus on their individual daily routine and having no interest to interact with one another. The mindsets are neglecting the presence of the old shop lots and passed down traditional businesses. The above is even more evidence, especially at night, where no activities can be seen. The concept and approach for the combination of urban design strategy, design intention, and program and function hierarchy, which were further derived from the site investigation for design purposes and solutions. Urban design strategy. First, enliven streetscape, creating linkages, setback, activating alley and path with continued 5-foot walkway. Second, engage and inspire community to revitalize. Consider active frontages with breaking the enclosed. Third, optimize urban spaces for greenery and recreation to create public realm and open public spaces. Design intention. Show transparency through solid and void, inside out with open terraces, in between spaces with open pocket garden, datum, clustering of variety of spaces, facade, creating place memory with light and shadow, program and function hierarchy, open plan public spaces on the ground floor and plaza, hands-on learning on the first floor, formal learning and collaborative learning on the second floor, therapeutic roof garden on the third floor. Therefore, with that, the aim is to allow the people and the clan community to come into the center easily and immerse to the art culture program proposed by the Learning Arts Center to pursue art activity, to start art. Now, let me bring you all through the Building of Arts. The site is located next to Jalan Station 1, consists of an open floor view towards the center. The design allows activities to be seen from a distant view, giving an idea of activities for the communities and or the observers. At the plaza, outdoor talks and sharing platforms, emphasizing on reconnecting the old and young communities through talks and sharings. The plaza is also complemented with interactive chalkboard arts, pocket parks, and existing Malay food stalls for nourishments. Closer to the frame facade, the structural design focusing on lightness and transparency, which is responding to the contextual issues. Into the building, spillage of hands-on learning activities from inside out of the building to the outdoor spaces were improvised throughout the profile. Then, entering the main gathering space at the center, quality of the skylight effect casting through the central void and allowing natural sunlight passing through the spaces from above. Continued art gallery from the ground floor to the first floor, directed users to explore with the design intention of visual permeability through glass partitions and voids. Spaces such as workshops were provided for the communities to learn arts for the future. Other than that, the Learning Center also encouraged artists and local communities to engage and interact through collaboration. Library with art-based resources culture, which is also complying with interior and exterior reading spaces. Moving through the open terraces, hardscape poses the movement along the loop, giving the opportunity to stay and experience, while complementing with the facade treatment, which allows shading and natural ventilation at the same time. Into the therapeutic garden on the top floor, introducing the restorative features of green pockets with the horizon view of Klang Town. Now, let me summarize the center with evidence of concept in technical drawings. Ground floor plan, arrows indicating the continued walkway and linkages with multiple access, also activate touches with in between spaces of shared and collaborations, which also consist of open pocket gardens, which allows the communities to linger with them. Continuous vertical circulation, allow users to explore. Same intention and approach were being applied throughout the upper floors as well. North elevation, facing from Jalan Station 1. Section from the same view, indicating the plaza and the frame design. Showing the visual permeability and relationship between spaces, increasing the chance of social and contact, while revitalizing of area through outdoor activities. Same intention and approach were being applied on the other section as well. Showcasing of voids in between floors, which not allowing horizontal floors interactions, but as well as vertical floors interactions. Moreover, in terms of the structural component and its materiality of the building, the ideas and selections were derived and related back to the design concept. Here is a close-up of sectional elevation, viewing from the front plaza next to Jalan Station 1. The callouts of the details. Construction detail 1, showing the structural system and materiality where lightweight construction were implemented. Widely use of vertical and horizontal frames of metal square hollow sections with reinforced concrete, creating the transparent idea of solid and void while allowing inside-out experiences and connections. Then, roof panels with glass in between and angled in degree, maximizing light and shadow experiences from the top to the bottom throughout the day. Therefore, natural lighting and ventilation were allowed into the building most of the time. And construction details. The gap between the resulting contrary effect. Natural ventilation were able to circulate in between, as well as the voids at the interior of the building, so that the community that are having their workshops and activities at the open spaces or terraces were shaded with screens, while at the same time enjoying breezy atmosphere. Self-elevation viewing from the back lane. Therefore, painting, arts, and technical arts were all welcomed into the Learning Arts Center of Klang for the people and the community to indulge with more arts as a gesture to revitalize the building of arts. And lastly, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Loy, for the insightful presentation. Last but not least, introducing our final presenter for the Bachelor of Science in Architecture program, which is Erna Lui, to present her work, which is guided by architect Eric Chang. Now, before we move on to the video, Erna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Bilar. Good afternoon, I'm Erna from semester 6 and my tutor is Mr. Eric Chang, whom I'm really thankful of for guiding me through my final semester. So I hope you guys will enjoy my presentation on my final project, the City's Archive, an antique center located in Johor Bahru. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Erna Lui from semester 6, and today I'll be talking about my final design project for Studio 6 named Karat, the City's Archive. So, to give an understanding on the background of the project, we're given a brief design a city lobby in the site of Johor Bahru.
I'm sorry, there seems to be a bit of an issue. The video is up now. Please enjoy.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Erna Lui from semester 6, and today I'll be talking about my final design project for Studio 6 named Karat, the City's Archive. So, to give everyone a brief understanding on the background of the project, we're given a brief to design a city lobby in the site of Johor Bahru. We were required to design a 3 to 5 story high building with a basement car park. Other than that, we were also given a list of spaces to include into the spatial planning of our building. The overall scope of the project was very wide, and it was up to our own interpretation and analysis of our given site to generate a suitable concept for our city lobby. The chosen site for the city lobby sits in the heart of Johor Bahru. As you can see from the macro site plan, the site is located near the JB Causeway, which links Johor Bahru and Singapore together. And because of this, the town of JB is often populated by tourists who are dropping by from visiting Singapore and also Singaporeans themselves. The site is also located near a few malls and hotels, causing it to have very high human exposure and activity. To have a closer look at it, the site is actually an island site surrounded by 4 different roads. Each of these roads have its own characteristics and history. One of the more famous roads is named Jalan Tan Hiot Mi, which is known as the Heritage Trail of JB. The street is often populated by tourists to get a glimpse of the culture of JB. The site is also located in the center of 4 different districts: the Commercial District, Institutional and Open Spaces District, Passive District, and the Heritage District, causing it to have high exposure to different user groups due to the different functions that each district provides. Johor Bahru is a town filled with a variety of races living together harmoniously during the day. People are seen interacting along the streets of Johor Bahru, eating at local coffee shops and more. But when the night comes, the noisy streets are then taken over by the vendors of Bazaar JB, and a whole new scene is formed. The bazaar is very huge as it covers a large surface of the town. Even though there are a large amount of vendors and visitors, the people walking in the bazaar rarely stops and are just moving along the streets. Through observing the site, it was obvious to me that the issues that I would like to focus on are the issues originating from the bazaar, as the town is doing well during the day. Bazaar JV was once known as Pasar Karat, famous amongst the local community for selling antiques and pre-loved goods. But due to rapid urbanization, the government of JV took Bazaar Karat as an opportunity to expand the local tourist business and to improve the income of B40 communities, resulting in a bazaar that now focuses more on profit and losing its own original identity of selling antiques and pre-loved goods. The vendors are also slowly losing their businesses due to the repetitive products sold in the same market and the lack of local products. From this, I came up with the concept of wanting to bring back the old as an addition to the new. I wanted to bring back the idea of antiques and the meaning of Pasar Karat as an act to preserve the history of Pasar Karat and also to increase the intensity and diversity of human interactions in the city throughout the day, while creating higher economic opportunities for the bazaar vendors as well. So now I'll bring everyone through the design process of my city lobby Karat. I started off my design with thinking of how can I filter people in through the market and the different districts on site. So I created 3 main axes. 2 of it are from connecting the 4 different districts so that the site acts as a shortcut for the people to get through to explore the town. For example, people from the public open space area might want to go grab lunch, so they can choose to walk through the building instead of taking the longer route. So this creates chance encounters as well as higher exposure for the city lobby to the public. Then I wanted to redefine the existing back alley by connecting it to the main entrance of my building. This is because the back alley is a road that connects 2 of the main roads together and has a clear view with no obstruction as there are no cars going through it. By putting the main entrance here, create a connection through the views of several roads, encouraging pedestrians to use the back alley, making it more walkable as well as to visit the city lobby. So, in total, these were 3 of the main axes established at the very start of my design process. The connection of 4 different districts and the back alley axis. I then meandered the axis so that it creates intrigue for the pedestrians, as it does not have a view straight to the end of the other entrance, but instead, it sequentially reveals interesting elements of the building as people are walking through it. 3 axes are then converted into fully public walkways that run through the building and are located on different levels so that the people are able to access the building from multiple entrances and into different levels, making the building highly accessible to the public. As I have mentioned before, the building is an island site facing 4 different roads and districts, so I wanted to take advantage of this by segmenting my building into 4 different parts to approach each road individually. The facade of the 4 different faces of the building are designed differently to respond to different districts. For example, the facade facing the institutional and open area district is designed with a people's part that slowly extends into the building. This allows the building to blend in with the district as well as attract people who usually gather around the open spaces to explore the building. Vertical openings are also carved throughout the building to create connectivity between the different levels of the building. The voids are overlapped to allow for interaction among different levels. So after combining all of this is how the final massing looks like. Now I'll talk about the spatial programming process of my city lobby. I wanted to make the ground floor fully accessible to the public by locating all the public programs on it. This is to enhance the public life and to bring back the human touch of Johor Bahru. The first floor of the city lobby focuses more on giving back to the bazaar vendors by providing them spaces to learn necessary skills on antiques and handiwork for more business opportunities. The second floor is programmed with spaces that sustains the building itself so that there are less monetary pressure on the building management. Spaces like offices and multi-purpose hall can be rented out to businesses and organizations to generate income for the city lobby. All the spaces are also arranged from fine grain for higher intimacy to coarse grain upwards, as finer grain spaces promote higher level of human interaction and even though we were given a list of programs to include in our spatial design, I modified the spaces according to the theme of my building, as you can see in this diagram. I came up with spaces like an antique street, vintage shop lots, as well as personalization and modification workshops that supports the function of my city lobby. So to determine the location of these spaces, ones that are used by the three main user groups will be prioritized and placed on the ground floor, and the rest goes upwards. Another design strategy is that I incorporated the idea of streets into my city lobby. Streets of different scale allows for different relationships to happen, as you can see in this diagram. So I designed my building with streets of different scales throughout so that different types of contact can take place inside the building. Main spaces are placed revolving the main streets, which are the three main axes, to allow the public to freely access the programs. This increases the exposure of the spaces to the public and higher chance encounters. Then I created secondary paths to connect the main axis to the site surroundings, creating streets of social distance scale that encourages human interaction and conversations. The shop lots on the ground floor are designed with double frontages so that it fronts secondary streets and also creates a street within itself. The smaller proximity of the street allows the local community to maintain their close relationships. So this is the west elevation of my building. As you can see, this face of the building fronts the heritage area of town. So I designed the facade with traditional shop lot elements like louver windows, metal grills, and also a roof that is sloping downwards, so that the city lobby does not disrupt the visual appearance of the heritage street. North and south elevations are designed with perforated cotton steel panels that are arranged in a rhythm, making the rhythm of the facade of the existing shop lots, and also a roof that slopes inwards and outwards so that the city lobby opens up into the street, causing the street to feel less confined between two rows of buildings. The east elevation is, as mentioned, designed with more green elements and a park to filter people in from the public space and also to blend in with its surroundings. This is my ground floor plan. As you can see, a 6-meter wide street acts as the main antique street, allowing vendors to sell antiques in the center of the street while visitors can still walk through the building on the sides. The shops are also designed in different sizes like old shop lots. For example, the watch repair shop and barber shops are of smaller sizes, whereas the kopitiams, restoration and personalization services have bigger areas. You can also see that all the shops have dual frontages to allow for more exposure to the visitors outside of the building, as well as to those who are inside. This is the view of my building from the heritage zone. I've used cotton steel as my main facade material to pay homage to Pasar Karat as the rusty market. The elements of the buildings are also designed by abstracting raster elements that I've observed on site during the site visit. And as you walk through the back alley, this is what you will see. Pasar Karat did originate from a back alley, so I want it to be reintroduced through a back alley. The back alley frames the entrance of the city lobby and acts as a guide to attract pedestrians from the streets behind. This is the informal busking area near the institutional and public spaces zone. So as you can see, the open spaces allow for people to gather and also for buskers to perform, creating a space for the public to use freely. The left side is the outdoor dining space that fronts the passive side of the site, creating higher exposure for the passive side and aiding the shop owners to boost their businesses by creating higher human activity. The center atrium space opens up towards the first floor and allows for the public to gather around. As you can see in the rendering, the main street allows for the vendors to sell their antiques on the ground or in booths to bring back the essence of the old antiques market. The shop lots are also designed with foldable metal doors and wire mesh tops like the old shop lots. The elevated walkways are covered by a canopy roof with hanging cotton steel panels that are arranged in a checkered manner to replicate the tiles of the shops through its shadow. So this is the face facing the passive side. As you can see, the building curves inwards to reduce the visual weight of the building on the pedestrians walking on the street. The open dining space is also located here for high exposure to aid the vacant shop lots on the passive side. This is the first floor plan. Most of the workshops are located on this floor. The workshops for antiques restoration or pre-loved goods personalization will allow people to create something new from the old goods that they have purchased. Vendors from Bazaar JV are encouraged to learn more on personalization of products and antiques restoration through the city lobby. This creates opportunities for the vendors of the bazaar to increase their product sales by attracting tourists and locals with products that have more locality and history to it. This is the workshop space. The perforated cotton steel facade allows for the pedestrians on the street to see what's going on inside of the city lobby as well as the people inside to observe what's going on outside. This is the atrium space and the covered walkways on the first floor. The city lobby is very permeable in terms of views as people are able to look through the building easily from one side to another, allowing them to be able to interact with one another and to encourage them to explore more of the building. This is the second floor plan. As you can see, the more private spaces are located on the second floor. The office spaces are actually offsetted from below to create a walkway barrier to provide more privacy to the office spaces. The voids and openings throughout the building still connects these spaces together even though they have different degrees of privacy. It also creates a better inside and outside relationship for the city lobby and its external surroundings. And this is how my final physical model looked like. The largest picture is a main antique street that is curved to attract pedestrians through creating a tree. The paved walkways is for visitors to walk, while the center is for vendors to sell the antiques and pre-loved goods. The two other pictures show the overall look of my city lobby and the facade. The perforated cotton steel panels create different degrees of privacy throughout the building according to the functions of each space. And this is where I will end my presentation. Thank you for listening to my presentation and I hope you enjoyed it. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Erna.
All right, thank you, Erna, Loy, and Jin for sharing their work with us. It is now time for us to move on to our second Q&A session. So, similarly to our first Q&A session, if you have any questions, please feel free to voice them out or share them within the chat room. And Azira will be keeping an eye out on all those questions and she will be reading it out to the presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, Biller. We have one question from architect Satira for Jean. How do you respond to the sloping side condition because it's not shown in the sections?
Actually, the building is on stilts, which the whole building is lifted up and it doesn't really touch the contour itself. So I preserve the contour by having a stilt for my building. Yeah.
I hope that answers your question, A.R. Satira. Thank you, Jin, for your answer. Do we have any other questions from everyone? Maybe I can ask semester 5 a question. What were the challenges faced during your design process? Lloyd, are you there?
Oh, okay. Okay. What was the question again? Sorry.
What was your challenges faced during the design process?
Challenges faced. Okay. I think through the design process, my main challenges were the construction and the materiality of the building. So as it was my first time exploring hollow sections with frame design, so and which is also I personally think that it's the most suitable to bring out my idea throughout the design concept. So I have tried. I've spent more time and thoughts on it. So the challenges were especially the layering of the fixed grids where the hollow sections are being placed. So because it affects the spatial arrangement of my building and it needed also additional supporting columns and beams for structural purposes. So yeah, like I said, which overall, it actually took me more time and also thoughts into it. Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Maybe I can ask another question to Erna as well. So, Erna, what are your can you share some advice or tips to your immediate junior, which is us, like the current Sem 6, like how you tackle all the issues along the way for Sem 6? Yeah.
I think one of the things is to always go for your tutorial sessions, because I know that a lot of us, right, will be very scared to go for tutorial sessions because we have nothing to show and all. But I find it very useful to attend each tutorial section with your tutor, because they can really help you develop your ideas. Even though you have nothing to show, I once sat inside the tutorial room with my tutor for 1 hour, not talking, just brainstorming ideas, but we ended up, managing to brainstorm ideas just by discussing. So it's very important to always go for your tutorials. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Erna. Yeah.
We have a question from Reference Teo. But before that, Shannon would like to tell you, Erna, that your presentation was inspiring, and that's Mr. Eric for you. And for Reference question, he also had a question for Erna, and he said that it's an interesting brief and interesting work. What he's curious to know is that your opinion, because you mentioned about creating a sense of nostalgia and paying homage to the neighborhood memories, tactility, etc. And in a sense, it feels like a phenomenology-oriented project which focus on human sensitivity. However, the starting point of the design is rather an urban-centric of tracing axis and city fabric nodes, etc. And what he wants to know is what drives you in choosing the methodology in approaching the project?
What do you mean by methodology in approaching the project? Can you be a bit more specific?
I think we'll need to wait for Reference to type it in the group. Yeah, in the chat room.
Okay.
I think Reference might not hear your question. Erna, can you try to voice it out again? Oh, he already said. What he means by methodology is as in how to relate the axis to the nostalgicness.
Okay, so I'm not really a poetic designer because I believe that architectural approach should be a balance and we should put our people as our main focus. But how I relate my axis to the nostalgicness was because I mentioned that the Pasar itself, the Pasar Karat itself actually originated from the back alley. So I wanted to reintroduce the function of this back alley as a usable space instead of this shady space that nobody dares to walk through. I wanted to introduce the market through a back alley itself by creating this friendly environment for the back alley so that, it relates back to the old times, how people used to sell things in the back alley, how people used to walk through the back alley and all.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Reference. Does anyone have any more questions? Okay, we have a question from Aisha that is directed towards Erna. She said she finds your choice of material very interesting, like the materials, and she'd like you to elaborate on it more.
Okay, so I use cotton steel because I wanted to pay homage to the rusty market. Pasar Karat means rusty market for selling antiques and all. And also through our first site visit, right, we actually observed a lot of rusted elements on site, as you can see in the collage that I placed in my video just now. So it was like a collage of all these rusted elements to show homage to all the old and nostalgic things that you find on site. And also because I chose cotton steel is because it's already pre-rusted so that it wouldn't corrode further later on because of the site being near the sea and all.
Yeah, I hope that answers Aisha's question. Moving on, are there any questions that the audience would like to ask?
The tutors can also feel free to participate in the Q&A if they want to share their experience while tutoring their students or the challenges while they were tutoring as well. If Mr. Caleb is around, maybe you can also elaborate on Erna's project.
Eric.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh my God. Architect Eric. Mr. Caleb for Loy and Dr. Siti for Jean.
We have a question from Architect Satira. Erna, and the question is directed towards Erna, and it's the question is, what are your future plans? Yeah.
I'll be planning to work for now and then pursue my master's in a few years. So now I'm working with Gary's Architects. So yeah, that's for now. I'm hoping to pursue my master's in the near future.
Okay. I hope that answers Satira's question. Another question for Erna. Erna seems to be the popular girl right here. It's from Shannon, and what he wants to ask is, since our juniors are not able to go to the site visit this year, what would be an efficient way to conduct site analysis and be inspired to develop their schemes? Maybe like on the spot or like later on. Like what is your viewpoint on this issue?
Okay, I wasn't inspired on the spot. I inspired through doing research about my site because our site is in Johor Bahru, so we only got to spend like a few days there. It's not a everyday visit kind of thing. So it was through a lot of researching about the history of the site. So I think even though you guys cannot go to site visit, just do a lot of research on the history of the site, what you want to aim for, research on it. There's going to be information of it online. So yeah, I got my information later on through researching about the site more.
I have a question for Anna actually. Do you think the information that you got online is not just purely, for example, text-based, right? Like, for example, YouTube videos could be a useful source to experience the site, right?
Yes. I think, okay, for us, it's because I get to experience the site physically as well as through the internet. So I know like what is true and what is not. I think you need to check your facts lah. Don't just blindly believe whatever you see on the internet. Do more in-depth research than those. And actually, there's a lot of like all these forums online, right, that you can find the locals talking about their own hometowns. So yeah, just do more research, you'll be able to find a lot of information.
Okay, I hope that answers the question. Moving on, we have another question from Kwan Yoon. The question is for the semester 5 project, so it's for Loy. This question is for Loy. What Kwan Yoon wants to know is that more elaboration on the facade and the roof structure, which you mentioned is the hardest part, and how does it relate with the concept and context, as well as how you overcome it and find inspiration from it. So Loy, would you like to answer this question?
Yeah. elaboration on the facade and the roof. So basically the material for the facade is timber, and it's fixed on the hollow sections with joints and nodes. And then and so for the roof, it's with hollow sections and glass, as can be seen just now from my render during the presentation. And also for so relating to my concept, right? I've mentioned as well in my concept that I wanted to create a very visual transparency idea, and also with inside out. And yeah, so to me, that I personally think that the frame structures helps me to create a more better idea for my visual transparency through the solid and void. And also, because I was talking about how the contexts are very confined and how people are not interacting with one another, and how there's this connection between the communities at the town. So I wanted to create that inside out experience with more openness, and such as with open terraces. So with that, I think that with hollow section structures, posts and beams can enhance the idea of what I'm trying to bring out. And then so relating to my concept, basically, hold on. Okay, so relating to my concept, first, like I mentioned just now, that I have used actually a different kind of method on responding to the existing local context. Like I'm not taking the exact idea from the local context components and using another method of it. And I have also given the solutions and purposes to the local context directly to the local contextual issues. So how do I overcome? Okay, and I think that architecture is always full of surprises. Yeah, and then how did I overcome it and find inspiration from it? Yeah, basically inspirations is always, for me, I personally think that it's always from precedent study, from Pinterest, and also from ArcDaily. So actually the main inspiration I got from is from the precedent study of Chris Pratch, his project of 1,000 yards. So I thought that precedent study could give me, it could kind of relate to my idea and my contextual issue. So I took that precedent studies. Yeah. So I think that precedent study is very important. And then also more research on other precedent studies. So you can kind of like take this and that and think that, oh, will this work and will this not work like that? Will it be better like that? Yeah. So I guess that's all.
All right, I hope that answers your question, Kuan Yun. Thank you, Loy, for answering. Now, before we move on, are there any final questions? Okay, we have another question from Aiden Fong, and this is directed towards Erna as well. What he wants to know is, previously, Erna, you have mentioned that the site caters the users of Pasar Karat and Malam people, locals and Singaporeans. So how do you induce this feeling of nostalgicness to the Singaporeans using local elements, and how does it work harmoniously with night market as well as at night in bringing out the sense of nostalgia?
Okay, so to induce the feeling of nostalgic to Singaporeans and so-called visitors, a lot of them actually visit there to, you know, experience the culture and heritage of Johor Bahru. So it is what is true to the site itself that that induces the feeling of nostalgicness to all these people. So by using local elements, I believe that can actually induce all these feelings of nostalgia to the visitors. I hope that answers your question. How does it work harmoniously with? Okay, so the night market is already there, and there are already vendors selling a lot of food there, an existing night market. What I'm trying to do is actually to bring back the
antiques, the education of antiques, to allow the vendors to actually learn more, so that they won't just sell the same things during their night market, so that they will have better business opportunities. Because as I've mentioned now, they're actually losing business because they're selling a lot of repetitive products throughout the whole market. So it acts as like a medium for them to learn as a starting point. Yeah.
All right, I hope that answers your question, Aiden. Now, before we move on, do we still have any questions?
I think I'd like to just address one last question for Jin. I think everyone is impressed by your rendering, so we'd like you to elaborate how did you come up with those renderings and how long did it take for you to come up with them?
Actually, for my renderings, I'm using Lumion for it because it's fast, it's more efficient. Or if you want a better effect, you can actually use 3ds, but it's slower. And I actually did some post-rendering after my submission because I got some exterior or some perspective that I did not render before that. So I actually asked a friend of mine for my batch, which is Ahmed. He's a very good, visualizer, and he taught me how to use Blender. And yeah, the last few renderings are actually from the Blender.
Okay, thank you, Jin Young.
All right, I think that concludes our second Q&A session. So it is the final Q&A session for the Bachelor of Science in Architecture program. Now, moving on, before that, thank you, the audience, for asking questions, as well as thank you to Loy, Jin, and Erna for answering. Now, moving on, let us begin with the presentations from Masters of Architecture students. So first off, I would like to invite Kong Xiang Lin from Masters Semester 1 to introduce herself.
Okay, thanks, Biller. So hi and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Xiang Lin. So today I'll be presenting my Semester 1 work for Masters, where the design will focus mainly on rethinking and redesigning the social spaces in the high-rise dwelling. At the same time, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank my tutor, Mr. Nasmi, who has been amazing in guiding me throughout the design process. So yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lin, and today I'll be presenting my project named The Vertical Neighborhood that I did back in Semester 1 for Masters under the guidance of Mr. Nasmi. So the brief given to us is as stated below. That is to design a tropical high-rise catered for at least 200 people, and one car park should be provided to each unit. Also, 20% of the GFA should be catered for the non-residential space, such as the public facilities. Because the site is adjacent to a marketplace with open car park above, we are highly encouraged to extend and integrate our design with the car park, in-home shopping activity, and life towards the space which is left unused most of the time. To provide some background, I'll briefly introduce the site and its context that will eventually lead towards my design intention. Madame Serra PJ Old Town is a designated site for the proposed high-rise dwelling. It serves the delightful myriad of hawker food from all races, and is a place where the locals or nearby white collars will have their daily meals. It is also a place where the people from the neighboring residential meet and socialize with others, as you may often find people lingering around without purposes. Madame Serra has therefore involuntarily become the public realm, catering the social and physical needs of the neighborhood. And adjacent to the Madame Serra is the famous PJ Old Town Wet Market. As you can see here from the photo, two buildings is only separated by a very narrow street. The green building here is the Madame Serra, and the red one, the Wet Market. PJ Old Town Wet Market is the major landmark of the PJ area, and it is a busy market which will be surrounded by motorcycles, vans, and lorries in the cool of the morning till the late afternoon 7 days of the week. The market attracts customers of varying demographics, and people from other parts of the district, although inconvenient, are willing to travel to the wet market for the goods it offers. Often, people will head towards the Madame Serra for breakfast after they have done their shopping. The dynamic relationship between the two buildings remains instrumental in strengthening the societal bonds in Petaling Jaya, with one building program complementing the other, It helps to keep the nearby streets lively. Through further analysis, there are a few set conditions or issues that was taken into the design consideration. The first one being that the site given is a corner occupying lot that's facing the main intersection points between the pedestrian and vehicular. Secondly, the market activity, smell, and noise which should be taken into consideration during the design process, where adequate privacy should be provided towards the dwelling units. Following is the low residential lots or short lots of the surrounding context, which means there will be minimal shading towards the building itself. And lastly, analysis of the neighborhood pattern and behaviors in PJ Old Town shows that the sense of community is slowly diminishing over time, as the offspring of the long-term residents are slowly moving out of PJ Old Town along with their children. Thus, the demographic of the neighborhood is leaning towards the older population. Therefore, the design of the vertical neighborhood emphasizes on the theme of humanity, where the building itself acts as a public element, radiating social meaning and value that extend beyond the actual buildings, embodying the urban characteristics, thereby inspiring the sense of community to be brought back and revisited again. The main approach of the high-rise dwelling focuses to redesign and reimagine the corridor spaces, which is often criticized for its monotonous function. Traditionally, the high-rise building is designed to have as small a core as possible to squeeze in many units, but such approach is driven solely for economical gain. The corridor design is also seen as a place to pass through, rather than a place to stop by. In such cases, occupants of the building barely know who their neighbors are. Therefore, to counter this issue, the corridor of the high-rise dwelling is designed to enhance the social qualities of the building by integrating communal spaces without compromising the need for privacy. Although breaking away from the contemporary insistence on maximum financial return of every floor space, such spaces have proven to improve the quality of internal environment, which has direct impact on satisfaction of occupant and so on, offering social benefits that go far beyond those of economical gain. So, I have also looked into several precedents with similar aim. The first one, which is the well-known Habitat 67, the interlocking forms, connected walkways, and the landscape terraces were the key in achieving the architect's goal of a private and natural environment within the limits of dense urban space, showing the integration between the suburban or garden home and the economical high-rise apartment building. The setback arrangement from the unit's immediate neighbor provided each unit with a roof garden, allowing constant flow of fresh air and maximum natural light to each unit. For the second precedent, I've looked into the Kitagata apartment building. It has been designed with a relatively shallow depth, such that the room becomes the only basic building block. Each unit, consisting of a few basic blocks, was provided with a courtyard-like terrace, where these terraces create holes in the building through which the far side of the building can be glimpsed upon. Lastly, is the interlace where an expansive interconnected network of living and communal spaces is integrated with the natural environment. The 6 stories tall blocks are stacked in hexagonal, forming 8 large-scale open and permeable courtyards. The interlocking blocks form a vertical village with cascading sky gardens, providing both private and public roof terraces. The design process starts by responding towards the urban context. The proposed building, which is occupying the street edge, the corner is carved out to embrace and address the intersection point and its context. Following, a gesture is formed through a strong axis at ground level, which connect both the frontage and the market. The building mass is then further decomposed and fractured to increase the permeability and porosity towards the space. However, the upper residential floor is interlocked at certain level to induce relationships via collective spaces, blurring the threshold between one entity to the other. Beauty of the site, which people tend to ignore, are framed on every floor in different directions, inspiring the residents to embrace it. And lastly, the assembly of the massing on top of the market allows for another form of connection between the two entities. So here's the ground floor plan of the proposed building. The ground floor is designed that it functions as a collective space together with the market and street, which serve as an important role in encouraging social interactions. The highlighted area here shows the building frontage and drop-off area, the ingress towards the basement car park, the egress from the car park, and here I have added some retail shop which complements with the promenade that connects both the building and the market frontage. And here are the core area towards the building blocks and the services area of the building. As mentioned earlier, a strong axis formed at the ground level here connects the market and the main street, which forms double frontages. Plaza frontage facing the market not only welcomes the neighbors to interact with the building through informal activities, but also invites and diverts the route of the passerby towards the building. The food market, which was part of a factor in bringing together the neighborhood, is realized at the axis, serving as a medium which connects both groups of people together to meet and interact, therefore forming a sense of community and propinquity. The illustration here shows the arrival from the market towards the proposed high-rise building. The overhang roof with mesh ceilings allow the sunlight to penetrate deeper into the space, and the plaza encourages interaction where informal seating and vegetation invites the people towards the space, forming a platform for public activities and performances. Here shows the first and second floor plan, which house the necessary amenities for the residents and management, such that gym, management office, multipurpose hall, and public garden is provided. However, these spaces are not limited towards the residents of the building. It can also be rented to the public as there is need for public facilities within the vicinity. As for the third floor, it connects with the market through eateries like cafe, and the vast amount of green helps to soften and even out the bare car park, therefore instilling new life and activity towards the space. This allows the residents and the people to meet and gather, and the outdoor seating encourages the people to stay and linger rather than pass through the space. As mentioned, the design intends to integrate communal spaces to liven up the corridor faces in hopes to promote social activities. And inspired by Yan Gale, he mentions that the gradation of outdoor spaces with semi-public, intimate, and familiar spaces nearest to the residents can help to increase propinquity. Therefore, the hierarchical division between dwelling group, housing complex applied in the project is motivated by the wish to strengthen the sense of community and belonging. In this project, the hierarchy of social groupings is reflected by hierarchy of communal spaces. The family has a living room or balcony which allows the family members to gather and have social gatherings. Then, the neighboring residents share a neutral space adjacent to their units, and the seating area placed before the entrance serves subtly demarcate the boundary of each unit. Residents of the block then share a breakout space to chill or relax, and this is also where it invites the people that go in and out of the elevator to linger or stay. Finally, when two residential blocks interlock, it forms the larger communal space, connecting residences from both blocks. All of this permits movement from small groups and spaces towards larger ones, and the more private and gradually more public spaces, giving a greater feeling of security and stronger sense of belonging to the areas outside the private residence. This in itself may result in greater use of public spaces, but the idea is also to create engagement with the building residents when one is entering or exiting their units. As you can see here from the floor plans, the residential blocks are rotated at 90 degrees on every floor, one in clockwise and the other anti-clockwise. Therefore, on certain floors when the rotation actually intersects, it is when it forms the larger communal space. The rotation also allows the ends to frame the different views of PJ Old Town. Overall, this forms an experience of walking down the neighborhood and encountering multiple spontaneous social activities where the ends of each street frames the different view of PJ Old Town. However, we must not expect all individuals to prefer or to be able to adapt towards the extroverted community living lifestyle. Therefore, two types of units are provided in the high-rise. One reflects the more introverted lifestyle and another unit the otherwise. Unit type A is designed for a family of 3 to 4, and unit type B and B1 is designed for a larger family of about 4 to 5 households. The unit sizes are based on the typical apartment sizes in Malaysia, providing the adequate size for each program to function sufficiently. The units actually consist of 2 floors and is designed according to the level of privacy, such that when one enters the unit, he or she is greeted towards the heart of the house. The more intimate personal spaces are tucked towards the inner part of the unit, and the semi-public space are arranged closer to the entrance. The dining spaces with sliding or folding doors for type B and B1, however, are intentionally placed in such a way that it allows the occupants to extend the activities beyond the unit boundary. The illustration here shows the softly lit living and garden space of the corner units, where the private gathering and conversation between the family happens. Next, the collective space, or known as the unit's porch, is similar to that of a landed house. It allows the occupants to extend their activities beyond their living space, where the occupants can simply slide open the sliding doors, pull out their dining table and have a party outside, or it could slowly become the shared garden space between the neighboring units. Following, when two building blocks intersect, it forms a larger communal space, sort of like the padang area of the landed housing, where the occupants play, stay, and meet. And this is the building section of the high-rise dwelling, showing the ground connectivity with the market through double frontages and where the food market actually draws the neighboring residents in. Following, the first and second floor, which houses the public facilities. As seen here is a section across the gym, multi-purpose hall, and retails. Then the third floor level connects the green left towards the rooftop car park area through eateries. The thick transfer slab here demarcates the transition between the public and private of the building function. As highlighted here, the section shows the dwelling levels, where communal spaces are sandwiched in between the dwelling units. Therefore, the corridor is not seen as a circulation space, but rather an extension of the dwelling units. To counter the tropical context, the building is enveloped with a veil of square hole perforated mesh facade. The perforated mesh helps to enhance the building's thermal performance by controlling sunlight and reduce heat on glazed surfaces. It also allows the occupant to keep the windows open at all times to allow natural ventilation. The density of perforations on the ceiling panels also alters depending on the unit's orientation and placement, ensuring adequate light to reach the interior spaces. However, the perforation density at the balcony is lesser as the setback and plants can further decrease the air temperature of the adjacent space. Also, the connecting space of each floor allows prevailing wind to ventilate the corridor spaces. So the elevation here shows the mesh facade, where the mesh is divided such that it reflects the basic architectural language of each unit, like walls and floors division, therefore minimizing clutter on the overall visual. The mesh facade also helps soften and lighten the massing of the high-rise dwelling, at the same time allowing subtle human activities to be seen on the street level. So here is an overview of the high-rise proposed. The building program is assigned according to its level of privacy, but the 3 floors below house the public facilities and the varying collective spaces which are scattered around the building. Overall, the proposed building reflects a lively high-rise dwelling lifestyle, allowing communal and social activities to happen at the corridor spaces. And with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy.
All right, thank you, Lynn, for sharing her work with us, which is guided by Mr. Nazmi. Now, moving on to the next presenter, I would like to invite Lee Xianglun, which is from Master's Semester 2, to introduce himself. Go ahead, Xianglun.
Thanks, Bilar. Hello, fellow respectable attendees, tutors, and friends. I'm Douglas from Semester 2 Urban Design Studio of the Master of Architecture program. First of all, thank you all for attending. The presentation that I'll be showcasing today focuses in my hometown Klang and explores on the lived experience in cities, engaging with research that informs the design process and outcomes. I'd like to thank Dr. Camelia and Architect Edward for their invaluable guidance throughout this project. So here I begin my presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Douglas, representing my previous second semester for Urban Design Studio last year, and here to present my architecture proposal. Firstly, I would like to introduce the Urban Design Studio module as an overview for you to get an idea on what I'll be presenting. The UDS consists of 3 projects, but the first 2 group projects target with an urban analysis and design for a master plan. These projects will be prerequisites for the final individual project situated in one of the project sites within the master plan. The first 2 group projects were supervised by Architect Edward, while my individual project was supervised by Dr. Camelia. As this is an Urban Design Studio presentation, it will only be fitting for me to brief you about my group's master plan and to give you an overview on our approach before we design our own individual project schemes respectively. Our 4-person Urban Master Plan group consists of Jingsen, Wei Xing, Yanzi, and myself. The brief for this master plan calls for a theme of gastronomic quarters, in other words, in relation to food. Our strategies must also respond to relevant urban issues by applying urban theories to plan for design ideas. This semester around, the master plan was focused in South Klang. We were given the luxury to propose the size of the master plan as long as it is within the distance between the Klang KTM station and Zhonghua Chinese School. Here's a map showing South Klang, where you see the Klang River, Klang KTM station, and the Klang Magistrate Courthouse here on a higher and hilly ground on the north side, and the Sultan Sulaiman Stadium and the Sultan Palace at the south side of this map. The new multi-story car park podium is also already built along the train lines next to the KTM station. As a collective group, we all agreed to focus within this boundary as shown, encompassing part of the Klang River at the north until the stadium. Our focus also targets the entire heritage Chinese shophouses until the stadium, and I will explain the reason for our focus in a moment. If you're a Klangites or have been to Klang, there are some problems at the moment which are worth to emphasize on. Most young adults and millennials are starting to move out of this royal city, and what is left are the older population. Klang, which is once famous for their popularity as a food heritage, is also starting to deteriorate. Roads and sidewalks are not walkable due to their lack of sufficient infrastructure. The Klang River is neglected, and so does the royal heritage. Our strategies for rejuvenation begin with tangible methods by proposing a green belt and urban ring, food behavior setting, and adaptive reuse of buildings. Intangible ways focus on food as a common language, as a district identity, and making use of the city as an apprenticeship village for the younger population. We have applied behavior setting as one of our urban theories by Barker and Wright, where it is defined as a setting for a specific behavior to express human behavior and the physical environment. Many of such settings can be seen in eateries in South Klang, such as the famous Jongkok Kopitiam and other restaurants where tables and chairs are put up on sidewalks and within a shophouse or by the side of the roads next to a fence. Next, walkability by Gardner is also employed, where it is to measure how friendly an area is to walking using these categories. Convivial, which is interaction with people, built and natural environment. Conspicuous for safe and inviting roads. Convenience for efficient walking possibilities. And comfortable for easing the walking experience. By applying rejuvenation strategies in the two urban theories, we formulated 9 urban strategies for our master plan, which include zoning for different functions, circulation rings for bicycle routes, central axis to connect 3 zones through a linear path, anchor points to make use of functional nodes in equal distance, permeability to allow roads to be more walkable, active green vegetation to encourage redevelopment of the riverbanks and greenery, food heritage trail by proposing more food behavior setting, adaptive reuse of dilapidated and abandoned Chinese shophouses, and footnotes to bring together younger generation into Klang. With all these 9 urban strategies combined, we propose an 81.67 acres of Klang Heritage Food District. Hence, this is why our master plan covers all these aspects, responding to all the issues. Again, these are the main landmarks, and our individual project site is sandwiched between the courthouse and the shophouses. Our green link connects from the north to the south of the master plan and punctures through the ground of the newly built car park podium. The car parking by the municipal provides greater opportunities to allow people park their cars and travel on foot throughout the master plan with ease. The green link forms the main central axis of the master plan and builds a series of anchor programs throughout the working experience from the north to the south, hence a new set of behavior settings. At the far north of the master plan, we propose a riverfront park and container outdoor dining by recycle old containers from Port Klang, followed by a food performance plaza to allow performers to engage with visitors through the art of food making such as teh tarik or roti canai. We also adaptively reuse dilapidated shophouses by turning them into greenhouse kitchens to grow food upstairs and cook them downstairs, and food banks to collect unsold food products to be donated to the charity. The Food Boulevard provides a flexible space for comfortable markets to sitting spaces under lush greenery. A mobile vendor food square here caters for a more contemporary style of dining to attract the younger audience. And finally, a Vista Plaza overlooking the Sultan's residences. These are the sketches done by my teammates to visualize the idea of Food Boulevard and riverfront park at street levels. This was the final presentation master plan model and our group presentation boards. Now I'll move on to my project after understanding the master plan. The project this time calls for a gastronomic institution of approximately 5,000 square meters in gross floor area and located at the site mentioned earlier. Here's the site plan of the proposed site once again. A Google Earth map up close of the existing triangular site condition in between Jalan Dato' Hamzah, Lingtan Dato' Hamzah, and Jalan Raya Timur. The size of the site measures approximately 1.09 acres in land area. The building here which sits on the site is a block of shop office at the bottom right, a car wash station in the middle, an open air car park at the rear of the site. The trees currently at the site is almost very old, so I attempted to remain this existing tree at the bottom left. Here are some photos taken looking into the site during our studio visit to Klang from the adjacent roads. The idea generally came about by architecturalizing the concept of food making to relate the gastronomic engagement to the master plan and project brief. To make food, we need to go through 3 different steps, mainly inspiration, where our senses are stimulated when we select the ingredients, followed by execution where we plan, create the dish, and refine to obtain critique if it's good or bad. And finally, the presentation of dishes to be enjoyed by the people. Similarly, the theory of behavior settings and workability are applied into the project as well to form a relationship between people and architecture within the building. The first precedence I look into is the Baltic Station Market in Estonia, which utilizes an open-air environment through linear circulation and roofscapes. Secondly, the Central Market in Abu Dhabi, whereby the architects implemented a sense of linearity and series of resting stops through courtyards and lift lobbies. So the programs took off through the idea of the 3 stages mentioned earlier, whereby dry and wet markets are incorporated in the building to allow visitors to pick their fresh ingredients, followed by a co-sharing kitchen where visitors can rent and cook the kitchen together for an apprenticeship session, a culinary theatre where local chefs can demonstrate their culinary expertise to younger audience, and a food lab to refine and experiment on new recipes. This encompasses the execution stage of food making. The final stage would be to present and enjoy the food, where a gastro gallery is proposed in the building to exhibit new types of food, food kiosks, and smaller eats and dining hall to feast among the masses. This leads to a mixed variety of food court and an additional performance space for workshops and events. This creates a close continuous loop per se through the circulation of space to space. The stages of programs are separated into different hierarchical levels. All these programs form my Klang Community Food Hub as a one-stop center for visitors to shop for daily essentials, community cooking, a new avenue for food dining. The massing strategy started with the existing site, defining the boundary for the 1.09 acre site, extruding the site footprint, and stack the programs through different levels. To address the adjacent shophouses on the east and hilly area of the Magistrate Court on the west, the lower massing proposed responds to the green link, while the taller volumes are pushed to the shophouse areas, allowing a triple volume of space. Next, the main building cores are flanked at the back of the building. To create a relationship between the different floor levels, voids are proposed to form informal corridor spaces and constant visual engagement to activities below. Finally, the supporting columns create the idea of tree-like appearance to complement with the greenery in the master plan. This was the first conceptual model showcasing the program response to the site, where a terrace seating area faces the food boulevard, series of walkways wrapping around the programs as a journey, and pitched roofs to create character. The back of house is turned towards the small alley for loading and M&E purposes. Another few conceptual models showing the arrangement of massing and programs on the floor plans, but generally, the approach whereby the main programs for the upper floors are developed and arranged towards the east of the building to form a full height volume of ground floor space. Here's the ground floor plan of the public realm, whereby it is planned to allow seamless transition from the master plan to the interior through the blur of boundaries. The continuity is formed through a series of pathways from the food boulevard leading into the building with small walking steps that can be used for seating. The open concept aids with the circulation floor spaces between exterior and interior. An up close of the ground floor plan. The main building cores and M&E are placed face to face with the rear shophouses. The main markets are placed towards the north side of the building as an entrance from the car park podium. The in-between spaces of each different programs are shielded with trees and groundwater elements to reduce overspilling or smell from one area to another and to provide passive cooling. This helps to also direct visitors from area to area. Food court here is placed at the south side, the concluding journey from the upper levels and out into the green link. This visualization depicts the triple volume open air ground floor of the food market and upper spaces. Next, the learning ground floor where people execute in making their dishes. Here we have a co-sharing kitchen areas and other supplementary spaces towards the east of the building while retaining a constant engagement with the ground floor below through series of voids and corridors. They include culinary theatre, demonstration classroom, and food lab. The corridors form this organic but linear in nature with the program spaces, and they create these small breakout areas for study spaces. An overhead bridge is proposed to link to the master plan's food museum as well. The journey continues to the highest floor with stairs to the indulging zone. Similarly, the main building course and offices are situated at the east of the building. The visitors will be first greeted by the gastro gallery and finally into the dining hall to feast and enjoy the cooked food prepared before concluding the journey at the food court through a grand staircase to the ground floor. As I would like to retain an open and porous environment, a large roof structure shields the entire site for a roomy ceiling of the spaces below. I have proposed a single unifying undulating roof structure to create a visual and character when visitors approach to the site while draping the programs below. The roof is further broken down into smaller divisions and rotated to complement the direction of pitched roofs of the adjacent Chinese shophouses. These alternating pitches allow clerestory openings for sunlight into the large space below. Finally, I've attempted to collect rainwater by playing with different heights of each vertex points of the roofs and overlapping each strip canopy with one another to protect rain from above. In the end, it creates this distinct character at site. The roof forms the main facade of the building. Branching columns are proposed to mimic the appearance of trees to support the large roof canopy structure. This creates a likeness to the building while activities can happen below. Wire mesh is used for the railing to add visual texture to the building facade and at the same time for a porous outlook. This is the building section. Here shows the different programs stacked among one another at different levels, where non-hollow stall is placed at the sub-basement away from the main markets above. Cutting through the side of the food boulevard of the master plan, the proposed building and the shiny shophouses, the lower massing responds to the context of site, while the higher massing reflects to the rear shophouses for loading and unloading. The sub-basement allows additional required car parks. The porous building maximizes cross-ventilation across the spaces, while the roof canopy filters harsh sunlight into the building and collects rainwater down into the columns into the basement for storage. A sectional perspective shot of the building. All in all, the final building axonometric shows the different levels of programs and spaces of the ground public realm, the food making learning ground, food celebration avenue, and finally the large undulating roof structure. This building provides a pit stop in a way for people traveling along the green link to the master plan. Here's the final visualization of the food court entrance to the building. And a final model presentation of the project showing the proposed building with and without the roof. That concludes my presentation of the Klang Heritage Food District and Gastronomic Community Food Hub. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Douglas, representing my previous sector.
All right, so thank you, Douglas, for sharing your work with us, which is guided by Dr. Camelia. Now, moving on to our next presenter, we have Natalie, which is from Master Semester 4, to present her work, which is guided by Professor Powell, as well as Dr. Keith. And her work is also so before we move on, please introduce yourself, Natalie.
Hello, I'm Natalie from Masters of Architecture. I'll have a short introduction in my pre-recorded video. So for this introduction, I will acknowledgement speech instead. So hi everyone, and hi Yubi. Thank you for staying for more than half of the forum. And a big shout out to Architect Prince, Azira, and Limei, Summer, and also Bila. Thank you so much for coordinating, and I appreciate your effort for the past 2 weeks. I hope all of you will learn and also be able to gain some insights from my thesis project. So you can start the presentation. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. Without further ado, let's move on towards Natalie's video presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie, and I'm from Masters of Architecture Semester 4. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to thank my beloved supervisors, Prof. Robert, Dr. Key, and A.R. Lam Chun Fei for supporting me and guiding me throughout my thesis project.
Oh, sorry, the video, there is a bit of a technical issue again. The video is actually here. So without further ado, please enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie, and I'm from Masters of Architecture Semester 4. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to thank my beloved supervisors, Prof. Robert, Dr. Keith, and A.R. Lam Chun Fei for supporting me and guiding me throughout my thesis project. This thesis project is mainly about social spaces in high-rise dwellings. The idea behind this project is to create a home where everyone returns to rest, be restored, and have quality interaction in their comfort zone. Hence, the design of home itself is particularly important for the restorative activities to happen, especially in the developing city. This thesis project aims to provide a multiple possibility to create social spaces in high-rise dwellings in Tiong Nam neighborhood, Chao Kit, Kuala Lumpur. To brief you on the site, the project is located at Tiong Nam neighborhood, Chao Kit, where social interaction happens at the car porch converted food stalls along Jalan Tiong Nam. My research question is, what are the ways to create social spaces in high-rise dwellings in Malaysia? While my problem statement focuses on social issues and communal interaction, flexibility, and lastly, responding to site constraint use. I have compiled several interesting observations during my site visits. As previously mentioned, the car porch converted food stalls operates every morning along Jalan Tiong Nam, and that will be the main feature of my thesis. The second characteristic of the site consists of a train station just across the road, connected by an existing bridge. Along the north-south orientation lies the River of Life, separating the old and new circular buildings, and currently being upgraded and beautified by the Department of Irrigation and Drainage Malaysia since year 2016. The site chosen is interesting as it sits next to the integrated networking and greening of the 10-kilometer beautification works along the Klang and Pomat River. Next up, we have a charity clinic nearby which is almost non-essential in this modern century. This idea will also be integrated as one of the facilities to promote social interaction. Last but not least, what I would like to highlight is the entrance to the site, whereby it is surrounded with luscious greeneries, which also forms a tropical dwelling project. To start off with the planning strategy, there were 5 stages of preliminaries which I have taken into consideration. Walkability and permeability are a form of access. The paths denoted in pink shown in the extension of the existing paths and circulation from the site itself. These paths were then subdivided into small areas for the allocation of programs and activities. Through the axis direction of the site, nodes were formed from 2 or more intersecting points. These points are important as they are manifested as social indicators for all possible social contingencies. After the formation of nodes, blocks of units were placed alongside with the axis as highlighted in yellow for easy access. Each blocks were then subdivided into 6 units as represented in the diagram, and the arrangement of these units are made up of rectangular size of 8 meters by 7 or 12 meters, and a setback of 2 meters for double loading corridor reaching towards these units. This allowed privatized space on all 4 exterior walls for better ventilation, lighting, and view. Last but not least, 3 main staircases will be incorporated into the design to connect these independent units in a diagonal manner, breaking the rigidity of every level. To expand on the ground floor design possibilities on social spaces, a macro study of ground floor subdivided areas were generated from this matrix as shown in the screen. The first column indicates an empty space, while the second column depicts the social design possibilities. And on the third and fourth column form different usages of space. The end result of the ground floor plan consists of horticulture, animal farming, playground, camping site for children and teenagers to mingle, courtyard, jogging track under the Sultan Ismail LRT track, community plantation for residents to be involved in physical activity during the weekends, spice garden, and tropical garden to foster social interaction through planting. After the ground floor plan design is completed, I have produced another matrix to explore on the residential blocks and overall massing design strategy. In this matrix, I have explored on the public spaces which can be injected into a typical block and horizontal and diagonal linkages between blocks. The third and fourth columns illustrate various interactive activities like barbecue area, exercising area, relaxing area, and public transport area. The overall massing of the project started from 3 blocks of massing, and then I've made a few separations of units within the block. While in this image, it shows the deconstructing of units placement and the linking of blocks before I lowered the building blocks to create a cascading field of vision, and finally the fine-tuning of blocks. For the connection design strategy, another matrix was made to design protruded areas along these connections for simple interaction usages, like a courtyard for residential space, a place for viewing, sitting, and also reading. According to Life Between Buildings by Yon Gao, the maximum threshold for meaningful contact within the social view of vision happens only at 5-story high buildings. Hence, a modular was created to maintain the consistency of social interactiveness. This modular is duplicated within blocks and replicated in other blocks. After the modular was formed, the placement of the units were taken into consideration, like each of them has a different level of social interaction. For example, a less interactive unit will be placed next to the facility space, and the very interactive unit will be placed further away. To dissect the modular, I'll be showing you the placement of social spaces in 5 levels, which will be facilitated with social activities from the matrix which I have generated earlier. For instance, in level 1, the social space is located at far right. It then moves in a clockwise manner and slowly moving to the left. And finally, it reaches the left-hand side of the unit space. Once the 5-level modular is completed, it is repeated above in the next modular. For unit design strategy, I've selected 3 areas of study, namely the balcony, yard, and double loading corridor. These areas can be combined for multi-purpose usage or even add extra space if they are shared between neighbors. I have a total of 6 different types of unit design layout. The 2 main characteristics that these units share in common are the entrances, or being labeled as a breach, which is linked by a 2-meter corridor, and landscaping area, which is incorporated in every design unit. These 2 characteristics will determine the social interaction level of each unit. For instance, in type A, the placement of landscaping area is furthest away from the breach. Hence, it is considered as a less interactive unit. This is an 8-meter by 7-meter unit, which is suitable for a single user as a home office. In type B, the placement of the landscaping area is nearest to the breach. Hence, it is considered as a very interactive unit. To promote interactive opportunity with the neighboring unit, a shared balcony was designed. The overall design is suitable to be occupied by a married couple. The same goes to type B1, favorable for married couple or even for siblings. For type C, it is a double-story unit with 2 entrances from each level, which is similar to duplex concept. It is suitable for nuclear family or to share with a single user. In Type D, a shared balcony was introduced to increase social interaction possibilities while serving an extended family which consists of 5 bedrooms. Last but not least, Type E consists of 3 levels, which is similar to duplex concept and comes with a private patio. This unit is also designed with shared balconies and serves a nuclear or extended family. Now, I'd like to show you on the final design outcome. This is a typical unit floor plan at level 4, which shows a diagonal connection from ground to a facility area at the end of each block and serves 5 units per floor per block. While this floor plan is a typical floor filled with different activities and a semicircular courtyard around the lift lobby. In this longitudinal section exhibits the unbreakable connectivity of spaces and floors. The tallest block here shows the diagonal connection at staircase, and the second block shows the horizontal connection at the double loading corridor. And lastly, the shortest block shows the connection between the units through a shared balcony. All in all, there are a total of 25 design social spaces which spread across these 3 blocks. Out of the 25 spaces, 6 are designed alongside with basic public usage, namely the building deck, staircase, corridor protrusion, lift lobby courtyard, celebrated outdoor view at facility floor end, and a bridge connector. Now, I'd like to show you some of my rendered perspectives. This is a view from the community plantation surrounded by existing trees from the side viewing across the dwelling. While this is a view next to the fountain with the highest point of intersection on the site for walkability and accessibility, drawing people into and around the site. The walkways are shaded with trees and shrubs, giving it a warm ambience. This is a bird's eye view of the overall development next to the river and surrounded by existing big trees, plantations, and gardens. More vegetations are stretched across the upper levels with plantings on staircase and at higher levels. The site connectivity happens horizontally through site bisections, vertically through lifts, and diagonally through staircases. This image shows an overview of the proposed high-rise dwellings in Tiongnan neighborhood, which consists of 3 blocks with 15-story, 10-story, and 5-story, creating a cascading impression. Amongst the few areas which are beneficial for social interaction are the coffee area, charity clinic, which was found in Jalan Tiongnan and replicated above ground level, pop-up stores, which can be held on a weekly or monthly basis to promote small businesses within the neighborhood, a wide staircase connecting all levels for 3 blocks with seating area and plantings. This space is suitable for people to rest, children to play, and to create a mild form of interaction through seeing and hearing. Next up, we have corridor protrusion with a small sitting area for occupants to stop by for the view or to rest. A bridge connector with the same design concept of extended area for sitting while passing from one block to another. A semicircular courtyard at lift lobby with some plantations to blend with the evergreen view at ground level. Residents can sit by and enjoy the view while waiting for the lift car to arrive. This is an additional landscaping area at elevated outdoor garden at every 5 levels, which is suitable for family picnics and private events. And lastly, a shared balcony which can be used as a small interactive space for storage purpose. In conclusion, the entire development consists of 84 units with 6 different types of design layout, which can cater for single users, nuclear family, and even extended family. The construction method used will be precast concrete, supported by typical column and beam of a standard size width of 8 meters and length of either 7 meters or 12 meters. Given that the selling price per square feet is approximately 178 ringgit as reported by the Edge Malaysia in year 2016, the selling price for this proposed development ranges from 150,000 to approximately 450,000, which is considerably affordable for those who are looking for a convenient, tropical, and sociable dwelling. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathalie, Xiang Lun, and Lin for sharing their presentation with us. It is now yet again the time for another Q&A session. And we have about 15 minutes. So do ask our presenters any questions regarding their projects. Once again, feel free to voice out, or either you can comment inside the chat room, and Azira will be keeping an eye out on the questions and read them out for you.
Thank you, Biller. We have a few questions for Douglas. The first question would be, can you share on your service road as you have food services at your site? And how do you manage the parking area for the visitors? This is by Mr. Azim.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Azim. If you remember the site plan earlier, I've used an existing small alley wedged between the triangular site and the Chinese shop houses for the loading and unloading bay. So instead of continuing the road into the master plan's food boulevard, the service roads actually ends with an egress through the side alley besides the famous layer pandan cake. So this helps services to be away from the main building programs at the west of the building. So and also, as in the video presentation earlier, the building course and supplementary programs are also situated in the east of the building, right adjacent of the service road. So it's actually convenient for the servicing to be happening there. So secondly, for the second question, I provided an additional sub-basement aside from the already built car park podium at the north of the site. So this sub-basement can be accessed from the Jalan Dato' Hamzah, which is at the southern side of the building, and it's also actually a one-way main road connecting to the courthouse. So yeah, that helps answer the question.
Thank you, Douglas. We have another question by Dr. Siti. Can you share how did the roof structure affect the indoor environmental quality of the food court area?
Thanks for the question, Dr. Siti again. The open-air building allows maximum sunlight penetration from the sides of the building while filter harsh light from the top. So as for the food court area, there are trees planted around the outer boundary of the food court space here, while additional in-between spaces of trees and ground floor water elements help to promote sufficient wind circulation and reduce the indoor temperature further and reduce stale air. So through a wind rose diagram analyzed through another module of the environment and technology tool, which is also under your tutorship, the dominant wind comes from the west and out to the east of the building. So this encourages higher air change frequency in the building. Thank you.
Let's hope that answers your question, Dr. Siti. We have another question for Douglas by Haziq Arifin. He says he wonders how you thought of approaching sensitivities of different dietary requirements, such as vegetarian allergies, etc. You mentioned non-halal would be placed in the lower ground, but he wonders if there might be other alternatives which wouldn't be so segregated while still being culturally sensitive. And also, not sure if you mentioned, but would it function differently during the weekend or weekday and between day and night?
Hi, thank you for the question, Haziq. So regarding the sensitivity of different dietary requirements, I focus less on that specificity of the dietary requirements, just exception of the placement of the non-halal stalls in the sub-basements. So actually this approach has also been a case study forward from many different modern contemporary markets across Malaysia's contemporary markets that have been the different side of markets away from the main markets. So I think this idea is actually a good thing to aware respect for other cultures and practices. Yeah. So for the second question, you mentioned that function differently between the weekend. All right. So the markets actually functions for the early mornings, where the food court is existing for the food court functions throughout the day, and the upper floors functions for the co-sharing kitchen and the food lab is operating throughout the afternoon, and while the pedestrian gallery and food dining and kiosks can be happening at night. So this creates a different three-layered programs at different timing zones throughout the day. Thank you.
Okay, hope that answers your question as well. Haziq Arifin has also another question for Natalie. Just wondering what you thought of the maintenance of the landscaping and common areas. Would it be a community initiative or funded by paying maintenance fees?
Hi Haziq, thank you for your question. In my opinion, for this project, because this is a social dwelling high-rise, so I think that it will be better for the residents to do the maintenance, because it is a form and it's also a part of the activity where they can socialize. So it's a best way, and at the same time, it can also save costs on the maintenance and landscaping. Because previously when I did my thesis, I visited an apartment, and these residents, a few of them, they told me that they have this kind of activity every weekend. So hence I inserted some of these activities, for example, like horticulture, into the program in my thesis project. Thank you.
Thank you for answering the question, Natalie. Thank you to Haziq for asking. We have another question from Aidan Fong, which is directed towards Douglas as well as Natalie. The question is, how does the theories that you guys have studied inform a new principle to the architecture of your respective typologies, apart from the stereotypical gastronomy or housing typology? And what are the differences as compared to a typical food or housing architecture? Douglas, would you like to answer this question first?
Yes, thank you, Aidan, for the question. For our first question regarding the theories. So the theories of behavior settings and walkability actually informs the idea to create a variety of different programs and to foster back the same original culture of behavior settings as I presented earlier in the video, about how the people eat and engage with the relationship of the environment. So this sort of creates a case study that informs the new sets of food behavior settings throughout the master plan and also within the community food hub. And also the idea of theories of walkability, how to make the spaces more walkable and more permeable to the city and urban scapes and also within the food hub itself. So it's because food hubs and also food district has been limited in Malaysia to my knowledge. So I wouldn't have to create a new comparison, but to create a sort of new typology per se by referencing other food districts and community food hubs across the other countries, but less in Malaysia. Yeah.
All right, I hope that answers your question, Aidan. How about Natalie? What is your answer towards this question?
Hi Aidan. Thank you for your question as well. About my theories that to inform a new principle to the architecture of this housing typology. What I've done previously is that we have dissertation. We have done dissertation, and the topic that I've chosen is actually for low-cost housing. Shout out to Dr. B and also Dr. Suchi. So in my thesis, and also in my dissertation, I have studied on four items. So the first one will be combined interactive space. The second will be the types of activities. The third will be the impact, the psychosocial impact towards the residents of the space. So, and also lastly is the building orientation and also openings. So from these four studies, I've generated a matrix that I've shown earlier. So hence it helps me to strengthen and also improve my principles in this housing typology. So about the differences is that because based on my dissertation as well, I have looked into a low-cost housing type. So hence, I think that for my thesis project, it is best to generate from that idea because the idea comes from the standard size given, and also standard requirements from a low cost. So hence, to generate from there, I've worked out various design through sketches as well. So that will be a form of comparison. So hence, I developed the size of a unit, 8 meters by 12 meters. That is the typical size. Thank you.
All right, thank you for answering the question, Douglas and Natalie. I hope it answers your question, Aidan. Actually, just now we've noticed that Paul has raised his hand. So Paul, hi, would you like to ask any question towards our presenters?
Maybe he's not here anymore.
Yeah, that's okay. So we would like to ask the audience if they still have any final questions to ask towards our presenters.
I think I want to ask Lynn one question. What is your design philosophy for your tropical high-rise design?
As you can see, my design focus mainly on designing for the people, like in terms of shaping the collection pathway and how the people could actually allows the public building to become the entity that actually attracts the people that feels the connectivity and also the functions together. So blurring the threshold between the private and the public. Yeah.
你帮我先给我这些，这样没明啊？
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Maybe if your tutors are around, they can share their experiences as well. Maybe Dr. Keith or Professor Powell, Mr. Nazmi.
Okay, hi, Azira. Seeing as you've named me, I guess I'll just say a few things. I think Natalie's project was a very interesting one because I think there was a level of ambition that she showed to design such a large site. There were several towers involved, and I think the issue was very much to do with how do you convert a street-based typology into a tower-based typology, which is always very challenging. And I think she did it rather well. There was a lot of ambition in the project, and I think ambition is always important in architects and architecture. So I think she framed the ambition to a very large scale from the beginning. To some extent, I guess the struggle was to control that ambition to make it, basically to shrink the project actually. She started out with a very, very large scheme. It slowly developed into a refined scheme, which is still quite large, in fact, larger than we would normally get for the final semester. But I think she did handle it well. What else can I say? I think when we look at master's projects, I think there's always a certain level of realism involved, if I were to put that difference between the MA and the bachelor's projects. And one quite interesting thing she put in, I noticed right at the end of the presentation, was the selling price of the units. So you can't get more realistic than that, considering it's a fictional project but with a selling price. So actually, it's a great marketing tool. Actually, you should ask for that, Natalie. You should ask for that money even without selling the real building. Just sell it on the internet. This is like 500,000 ringgit, and you get some great drawings, and that's it. The building doesn't quite exist yet. Okay, so those are my comments.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Keith.
You're welcome.
Do we have any more questions, or maybe another sharing from another tutor? Dr. Camelia is with us also. Maybe she can share about Douglas project. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Maybe you can buy and build it together. Should we ask more questions to them, Biller? Maybe we can ask any of the presenter to answer how important is research in their design, since masters are focusing a lot on research-based designs.
Yeah, maybe I'll ask Natalie, because what Dr. Keith said mentioned just now is that Natalie actually did mention and done like proper research about the possible like pricing as well as the budget used in her project. So I would like to ask Natalie if it is actually a challenge for you to like sort of like find and estimate the project of the price of the project, because as Dr. Keith said, it is quite large, like the scale that you have for the project is quite large. So I was wondering if Natalie, if it is quite challenging during your project to research on how much is the pricing of the materials as well as the approximate price of like per unit of the building.
Thank you for the question. Actually, when I did my thesis project, I did not research on the price. So hence, I got a lot of fireback. Yeah, and then after that, I did a write-up for Dr. Keith for my project. So hence, I started researching and I came across the Edge property where they quoted for the price. And I think that it's quite legit that that once when you propose something, especially for thesis project, it is best to have a backup, especially with figures or quotes. Then you can be safe lah. I mean, then you'll be seen as a legit project that you can propose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for pricing, about the pricing, you can ask A.R. Zahari if he's still here. He will teach you on the pricing.
All right. Okay, thank you, Natalie. Before we move on, are there any final questions that's directed towards our master's program? Okay. We have a question from Aidan again. He says, hi to all master's presenters. What are the differences do you find in the methodology on producing a thesis project as compared to an undergrad ADP? And are there any advice for the undergrads in terms of deriving ideas, researches, or preparations for those who are about to pursue masters? So shall we start this question with Lynn answering, because it's directed towards like all three of them. Yeah. So Lynn, would you like to start with answering this question?
I think it's very obvious, like the degrees, usually you only look in the very surface of the building, like you don't really look into the design intention behind it, and also how are the tourists derived from. So in the masters, you mainly look more into it, and it's mostly based on research. Like you have to look at theories that will actually support your design. And as for the advice, I think it's also best if you can sort of organize your research and also know what you want to do, and from there you can actually construct and know your design philosophy and also intention that will actually guide you further on in the future. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lynn, for the answer. Moving on, Douglas, would you like to provide your answer and your opinion on this question?
Sure. Hi, Aiden again. So I believe research is very pivotal in master's program for an in-depth investigation. So for example, on like the history of the design and different design theories that functions, all of this that functions as a catalyst for architecture production. So actually a comprehensive reading through different media has to be done. Like for example, my master plan and my food hub project, there are also different written journals by our own tutors, Dr. Camilla and also Dr. Suchi's collaboration and different other tutors that help actually facilitate through my design as well. So in comparison, back in undergraduate, we always dealt with more conceptual aspect of things and designs as well as we can. So, and yes, we did progress towards the practicality side of towards things, practicality side of things towards the final semester of undergraduate. But in comparison to postgraduate, where we identify the issue, we formulate the research question and respond those issues and design while having these questions in mind. So this helps to actually track our design to constantly meet the questions and not deviate from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas, for the answer. Moving on, Natalie, would you like to share your answer?
Hi, I agree very much with Douglas because what he thinks it's actually very accurate, where research is very important when we have to study about the methodology. For methodology part, it's a very in-depth kind of thinking that you have to go through front and back, and then in the middle you have to tie them up together. So this is the important thing that my lecturers told me when you do your dissertation. So it's best when if let's say you're pursuing masters, it's best that your thesis and your dissertation they are the same. So when you do your thesis, your dissertation will support you. So you will know, you have a clear thought when you design your project. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Natalie. ARR Satya would like to say that hope that they can welcome interested undergrad students to join the master student presentation. So another question from that we have is from SABD, and it is a question that is also directed towards three presenters as well. What were the challenges that you had to face due to the lockdown, and how were you able to overcome it and finish your thesis? So this is SABD's question. Would you like to start with answering it first, Lynn?
First of all, I'm actually not doing any thesis, but I will just talk based on my experience in terms of my design studio. So one of the challenge is that we will not be able to visit a site, so we will not be able to determine what are the behavior setting of the place, like in terms how the people go and where do they usually linger at, and how are the activities spaced throughout the time. So we were forced to look into information online and actually through Google Street View to sort of like understand the site better, and at the same time with also from help of the people from the local communities, we actually contacted them and get some insight towards the site area as well. So yeah, that's basically our way to get it done.
Thank you, Lynn, for your answer. And thank you, Architect Seth, for the really interesting question. Would you like to answer next, Douglas?
Yes, thank you, SPD, for the question. So as this project was carried out before the COVID-19 pandemic, so there wasn't much of an issue back then. However, it affects the current semester, which is my current thesis module. And as I'm redesigning a new market in Klang, so there's been restraints on the site visit for sure to visit existing markets to see their current problems and the things like that. And also, I only depend on, like mentioned as Lynn as well, depending on existing readings from different publications, literature reviews, and newspaper readings, contacting the local municipal councils on what's going on with the history, what's happening. Yeah, I think that's the most challenging part about having not to be able to visit the building itself, visit the site itself.
Thank you, Douglas. Natalie, do you want to answer as well?
Hello. I did my thesis and my my dissertation last year, so it did not affected me. So I'm not affected very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Architect Sir, for the question. Shall we move on, Wheeler, to the guest speakers?
Yeah, I think we should move on. So we shall conclude the third Q&A session, which is directed towards our master's presenters. So thank you, the audience, for asking questions, as well as thank you, Douglas, Natalie, and Lynn, for answering that. So now we would like to call upon our guest speaker, the first of which is the alumnus, Kwek Chun Tian, on behalf of his Hantology Life Design Competition, to introduce his members and his project to us.
Hello, hi guys, can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
So, feels good to be back. I'm Koi from the graduating semesters. So today we are going to share with you guys about our competition back in February this year. And the member of this competition is me, Shannon, Crystal, and Chenzi. And it is really a great opportunity for us to be able to represent tailors and Malaysia to this international competition with our tutor, Architect Prince, as well as Architect ZE. So hope you enjoy the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ready? Hello guys, my name is Koi, and here joining me with Shannon, Crystal, and Chenzi. We are about to share our experience in the live design competition held in Manila, Philippines back in February 2020. On the 7th to 9th of February, we departed to Manila, Philippines, accompanied by our lecturers, Architect Prince and Architect ZE. We embarked a memorable journey representing tailors and Malaysia in the Architectural Festival. The festival was held in Fort Santiago, a historical fortress built during the Spanish colonization. Anthology is an annual event filled with inspiring lecture sessions, dialogues, workshops, and competitions to provide a collaborative platform for the architects, engineers, planners, government, and students from more than 25 countries. We took part in the live design competing with 11 participating schools from different countries in a dungeon. It's scary, yet it's fun. We need to submit an A1 board at the end of the day, showcasing our findings and design progress to be used as final presentation boards during the third day. We were given 26 hours to produce the design solutions for adaptive reusing an abandoned historical building, giving it a new purpose on its existing usage to enhance the heritage, social, economic, and architectural potential. We went for a short visit to the two-story Aduana building, which was built in the 1822 and housed several government offices throughout the years. It suffered serious damages from earthquakes, World War II, fire, and demolition up to 1979. And today it remains unused.
All right, thanks, Coit. So, hi everyone, this is Crystal. Before designing, we first studied the site's history, the genius loci, and context to decode what's really needed on site. I will first introduce you history of site, its significant landmarks, and early demographics. Intramuros is known as the oldest district of Manila. In Latin, Intramuros means within the walls. It was built at the end of the 16th century by the Spanish for the most influential and wealthiest citizens lived. Today within Intramuros, you find beautiful cathedrals, plazas, and schools, all very nicely conserved. Along our site, there is a prominent river where you can see in this photo montage, which plays a huge role in the economy. It is known as Pasig River. opposite the river, a new city named Binondo. It's known as Central Business District. So the brief of the competition gave us a dilapidated double-story building. It is situated along this river with two main streets intercrossing and three plazas surrounding it. These plazas are historically notable as landmarks and to assemble the citizens. It was also where the Spanish gathered and celebrated their religion. And over the years, a number of high-rise commercials are built in Binondo, while Intramuros played a huge role in conservation and tourism. With that, there is a contrast of an old district, which leads to a different group of demographics. Today, we notice a large number of tourists, students, and government officials on our site. With that, we have studied that there is a strong need and interest to share ideas, to perform, and also to retell the rich history of sites. So here is a photo montage of our site, the Aduana building, the intersection between two opposing streets, Soriana Avenue, the Murala Street, Pasig River, and the plazas and the demographics. So let's take a better look at the context through plans. The red box signifies our site, two opposing streets, and where the river is located. So a bridge is actually proposed to connect the old and new district across the river. This increased the passerbys, and it will definitely generate new opportunities for our site to be reactivated. And looking into the original floor plan of the old building, it is symmetrical and it is visually permeable from both ends of the streets. Historically and visually, this linkages intercrosses one another that leads to our concept of intersection, which brought our intention to have our building adapt as a catalyst where the old and new meets. And with the layering effect of the intersections of streets history then brought us to the idea of diorama. My friend next here will explain what's diorama and how our building addresses it. Thanks.
So after we formed our concept of intersection, we were thinking how can our program bring out the concept of old and new, and how can we bring back the old cultures suiting interests of today's generation. So we then looked into the site's potential in terms of a symmetrical plan, creating pocket space and framed corridors, the love of the Philippines for art and culture, and also the layers of history of the site itself, which remind us very unique that originates from the Philippines, which is diorama. So what is diorama? Diorama is actually a traditional and interactive form of entertainment for the Philippines and usually used to recall history and tales, as you can see from the pictures. So we were then thinking, can our building itself and can our new program be a living diorama where we want the building to actually utilize existing site potential and provide multiple platforms for art and culture events, and also integrating a new collaborative hub where people can come here and share ideas and also enjoy about art and culture. And then we then developed a series of spaces suiting our main users, the university students, the government, and the tourists. So our main program is actually the collaborative hub and diorama, and we actually extend out the program into performing stage, black box, and also for the meeting wise is mainly focused on forums and talks. And next is how we will actually suit our program based on site context. First, we actually slice our building into two parts. One facing the old district, the other facing the new district across the Pasig River. And the second one is we extrovert the site, because we all know that Intramuros is something that it used to be only for the elites. And so we wanted to extrovert it and activate the two plazas, as you can see from the diagram, across Mural Street and Plaza Mexico as well. And next is we actually extend the intersection to form this void in between, and also responding to the two ingress from Mural Street and Serrano Street as well. And this void then helped us to separate our program into the new one and the old cultural one. And it is then we come to materiality, where we infill the voids with this lightweight biomass structure to create a ghostly structure. It's trace of history. And also we infill it with the runes that we actually taken down. And it can also create spatial quality in terms of light and shadow effect, as the precedent showed beside. So this is a progress sketch where we had as an introduction.
Thank you so much, Shenzi. Now I'll be talking a little bit more about the spatial layout of the existing building and what we propose for the adaptive use project. If you look at the building plan itself, it's actually quite symmetrical, and it also features two open-air courtyards. So these two open-air courtyards will actually be preserved for the buildings program as an interstitial breathing space from all the auxiliary functions on the perimeter of the building itself. These courtyards will also function as a flexible green area for activities to spontaneously occur. Well, then the intersected void created by the diagonal axis dissects the building and opens it up towards the street, giving a visual permeability. So an amphitheater is inserted within and connects the surrounding plazas, Plaza Mexico, Espana, and also Murala Street, Murala Square on the other side. An amphitheater, and so these plazas used to be traditional entertainment spaces. But now the amphitheater connects to the heart of the building, a new entertainment space, central stage to showcase cultural performances. Our early sectional sketches actually capture the intention of a double amphitheater that functions as a staircase. The first set of steps is an amphitheater for the existing Murala Square. It connects down to the ground floor, and it transforms it into an informal performance space where spontaneous activity will take place. The second set of stairs will connect to the middle platform you see over there, and this will be the cultural showcase and a central stage where people will see all the way from the ground floor or from the street in towards the building itself. And so, if we look from the left-hand side, the Murala Square entrance has a clear sightline towards the central stage. It's actually established for pedestrians to see the various activities populating the insides of this previously enclosed building. From the Suriana Avenue entrance on the right-hand side, you can see the users walk through a double volume space into the time tunnel where the live diorama program takes place. And so a viewing deck is actually just right above these users when they walk into the Suriana Avenue entrance. And this viewing deck overlooks the historic Intramuros district from a vantage point. So the intersected void also separates the building into two halves naturally, only connected through the central stage and courtyards. So this distinction of programs through zoning makes it into two zones. The first zone is a collaborative zone and the other zone is a cultural zone. And these help align the spatial needs according to wayfinding and views. The collaborative zone is marked out in the blue, and it's a more private zone. It's designed for the locals and students. It features co-working spaces, meeting rooms, and a forum for weekend polls on the ground floor. It overlooks the Pasig River, and it's located towards the back to give the users privacy. The cultural zone, marked out in the red, caters towards the tourists on site, and it's placed towards the active front of the building in the front, looking towards Plaza Espana. Now there, Time Tunnel actually connects both the entrances together, and it's also where the live diorama program takes place. So when tourists come towards from the Murala Square entrance, they will actually have to go through the time tunnel in order to reach the amphitheater itself. And so there's an immersion of users before they enter the building itself. And so we can see how it's split between the public and the private, with more public programs in the red zone and more private programs in the blue zone. On the first floor, the wrought iron inspired staircase leads to a central stage, which is actually the emphasis of our building itself. And it branches into two zones. The first zone being the collaborative zone and the second zone being the cultural zone. The collaborative zone features a study area for the students from the local universities, since this is a town with lots of universities over there. And also the cultural zone, there's a theater as well as a gallery corridor for more private events to take place. This is where the tourists will go. And as you can see, the staircase actually connects all the way from the ground floor towards the first floor in an unending flight, and it actually passes through the central stage itself. It reaches a point where there's a vantage point, and that is the viewing deck overlooking Intramuros and the historic district of the town.
And as for the spatial experience, the split captures the attentions of visitors, yet function as the spine of the building. It unifies the subspaces in the program. And looking from a street level, it is a visual landmark, and within the building, it is a time tunnel to witness a live diorama. The existing atrium is used as a courtyard to bathe in natural lighting into the building. The seating area serves as an amphitheater looking at the stage where cultural performances will be taken place. To remain the existing columns and rustic materials with the play of wire mesh allows the brickworks to speak for itself. We see the strengths of selecting a lightweight material to mimic the original form by contrasting the fortress bricks. While walking through, you witness a historical timeline, interactively narrated out by holograms. The locals narrating stories and folk art is proudly displayed. And now, we will play a walkthrough video showing an overview of the building. Adona building is the first impression of intramurals. One will enter the building, welcomed by the ghostly figure of the structure. Like a time tunnel effect, a flight of stairs leads you up to the existing stage. Then, the second flight of stairs leads you up again to the viewing deck, where you will be greeted by the wide perspective view of Pinondo. So as a conclusion, the Live Diorama Cultural Arts Center addresses the site surrounding plazas and streets, behaving as a catalyst where the old and new meets. It aims to host performances every Sunday after Mass, so one could celebrate history humbly before Christ, for one to reflect and to move on. Because then, we as a community could innovate by embracing new ideas. Thank you. And now, we're going to share some thoughts from this adventurous and fun moment in our life. And so for me, I think that this competition is not, is quite different from what we have experienced in the universities and others approaches, as in the additive reuse scheme we have not been approached before. So this is a really great opportunity for us to learn that actually this historical and cultural needs to preserve as well as to conserve.
And for me, I think that it's a very intense experience because we are asked to do an exquisite, meaning that we have very short time of frame and ideas formation and decision making, and also effective communication is very, very crucial. Yet it was a very great experience to get to design in a historical dungeon.
Personally, it was an exciting and nervous experience to compete live internationally. During our final presentation, we were the luckiest group because we were the first to present, and it means sprinting through entirely. A live competition has definitely taught us to strip off all unnecessary stuff to seriously focus on what's high value, and that was extraordinary.
Well, personally, I felt really grateful to be chosen and working with three like-mindedly competitive, but also very differently opinionated teammates. It was surreal to be working within history itself. And I'm so glad that our tour guide, Mr. Prince himself, was a Filipino, and we had Miss C there to help us along the whole way. So thank you all for listening to our talk. We sincerely appreciate you taking out your time to listen to all of this, and we hope you get inspired, and thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, thank you, Shannon, Coit, Crystal, and Chensi for the thoughtful presentation. It sounds like a very fun experience, which I wish we could be there, actually. We appreciate you guys for sharing us with your experiences as well as achievements. So now, moving on, we would like to invite the second guest speaker, which is Kelvin Bong, who will be presenting his winning project for the PAM ZSR competition, Part 1 category. So Kelvin is a recent Taylor's Architecture graduate and recipient of the PAM ZSR Architecture Prize. So throughout the vision of his design works, he continuously pursues his obsession with the multi-layered values and relationships between occupants, the public, the elements of nature, as well as the elements of architecture. So now I would like to invite Kelvin to present his work and share it with us.
Hi, Azira and Bila.
Hi.
Hi.
Go ahead and share.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi everyone. Can you guys see my slides?
Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone, it's my pleasure to be here, and I think it's good to see all the juniors and tutors again. And meanwhile, I'm sharing my recent reading project with you back in the early March this year. And first, let me explain about the title, Dematerialized Threshold. And it comes by the concept of blink boundaries that are reflected simultaneously throughout the spatial experience of the century-old Nanyang shophouses. And these shophouses make up the largest part of the city. In Muar Johor, it is a very common element of Nanyang architecture where the threshold spaces are not clearly defined, and people are used to using these spaces without norms. Nothing good or bad to pinpoint, but as time goes by, I think it forms that some sort of memory of space, and it narrates that some sort of their way of everyday life in the city since a century ago. So Muar is very similar to Klang. It is a royal heritage town, a very touristy spot, but more of a developed version, I think, with a very well-planned circulation network in an urban scale. But behind this royal title, you could actually experience these two extremities. While the tourism industry in Muar is booming, the traditional trades are trying really hard to survive. And the royal title comes by the success of the city development, once ruled by the Malay Sultanates. Very importantly, due to this very significant Muar River as an origin of how it starts off as a city. And the city's buildings are all arranged in a way axially to the river. Same goes to our sites, and I think that the river could be something remarkable. You know, we can frame as a constant reminder. So before that, I will brief us to design a cultural innovation center, and then comes to the core of this project, which is culture. And in traditional sense, culture is the way of life, and it is a symbol. And architecturally, can a century-old Nanyang shophouse be a symbol or a vanishing culture? Because to some age group of people, it resembles a physical register of life within. And because most of their memories are actually staying in it. And I think compared to preserving the culture, we should preserve the memory and design something that can resonate the memory and our feeling as a personal touch to it. So back in studio, while I was having my research, I came across few news taglines stating that Johor is keen to revive one of its losing culture, the arts and tradition of songket ternun weaving. I didn't choose the general cultures that can be seen and experienced at Muar, like the traditional lion dance. They have the very famous lion dance in the entire Malaysia, or the otak-otak, which is the very special food over there. Because my idea is not to recreate the existing culture and compete with the existing retailers. Instead, I think it should be complementing their persistence. And the weaving tradition is dying off. All these branded fast fashions are actually the main reason. They are mass produced, and that makes them high efficiency and low cost. That is similar to, I think, the principle of modern architecture that today, which they follows, duplicating, reproducing, and moving towards a more user-centric design. But I was thinking, what about our human feeling and our position in modern architecture? Is there a more humanized way to achieve a so-called high efficiency and low cost, other than mass production, so that it can sustain for a lifetime? And then I found a solution very interestingly in this interesting piece of Song Kettenun, which named after Moore. And the patterns showcase Johor's agriculture specialties. Johor is actually one of the largest agricultural exports in Malaysia. And one of it that catches my eyes is the pineapple. Usually people will take the fruits and throw away the pineapple shoots, which is the bottom part of the pineapple. And back in the Philippines, pineapple shoots are actually used to extract fibers and turn into a fabric. And to me, clearly there are actually opportunities and alternative resources to lower down the overall production costs. And they also have mangosteen and different spices. They are good to be used for natural color dyes and to replace the more expensive chemical dyes. So yeah, the focus is shifted from mass production to production using a totally free agricultural ways to achieve the same outcome, which is high efficiency and lower costs. And to me, it is also an innovation introduced to a more sustainable way of weaving a production line. Yeah, and you also see that cultural relevance to the context. And this relevance continues architecturally. The build form is set up in continuous reference with the adjacent old shop houses. And the site has another street facing in a row of modern office buildings. That's why the fabric facade looks more modern, which is on the right bottom, the renderings. And the site location is very central in the city, right opposite the bus terminal, beside a canalized river, and the back is facing a primary school. So these neighbors are potential users to attract. So since the building is open to public, I want to make sure the buildings looks transparent. So I introduced stills to minimize these solid structures that support the shop house. And I think stills are good to play with in terms of its porosity and light. And slowly I took away the roof tiles, replaced it with transparent roofing sheets with some parts open up to the sky. So you can see from the most right to the most left, the build form dematerialize, and it makes the presence absent from the space inside. Yet it resembles that authenticity, but with a more modern approach. And inside, spaces are arranged in sequence as the traditional weaving process. In between the spaces are filled with this spice and herbs gardens in greens, and the waterscape, which is a bit brownish, that actually blur the boundaries between inside and outside. It is just similar to the concept of internal courtyards we encounter in the old shop houses. And just nice, all these spaces would require a lot of natural light, and the building definitely will receive a lot of it. And once the self-planted spice and herbs grow, they are used for the natural color dye for the fabrics. From far, you can to see from this rendering, you can see that the lines of yarn actually wrapping through the building to woven fabric surface. You see the colorful one hanging as a pavilion. And it's very similar to the operation and aesthetic of traditional weaving loom. The entire process from the lines to the final woven products is celebrated here. You can also see the pulley systems introduced as part of the architecture. That's to ease the transportations of raw materials between production space from down to up. and from far to near. So maybe to some of you, the overall form looks like a huge machine running its operation, but I think it is in a more subtle way. And here what I'm doing is also making the environment as an overall atmosphere. The upper levels are mainly public garden that is linked with the pedestrian bridge to the bus terminal on the most right and the primary school on the most left. And they will feel very welcome by the space. And the memory begins to surface from the moment when you step into the cultural center. It begins with this storefront facing the very happening 5-foot walkway and the busy road with lots of car honking sounds. And then the patch of exposed bricks in the wall you touch, and you feel that rustic texture when you're in the textile installations gallery with a slight familiar noise behind the background. It's the bargaining sounds of uncles and aunties at the textile market. It's just somehow like a usual marketplace. And moving on, you walk to the production spaces, you see the workers soaking the textile up and down into the color dyes repetitively. And the sound of squeezing and flapping the textile. And then you follow him to the drying area. You see the sun is shining so bright into the space. You see the shadow, very beautiful. And people strolling along the river stop by and take a look. And upstairs, you're on the pedestrian bridge filled with laughing sounds of visitors coming from the direction of the bus terminal. And also the running footstep sounds from these primary school kids. They are all pure and happy. Then at this quieter garden, you'll see some random people sitting and contemplating, maybe about their life when they turn old. And you walk through all the corridors and explore the random textile installations yourself. You watch them quietly. When it is windy, they move in breeze. And then finally you reach the top with a view framing towards the Moa River, the origin of the entire city success development. And you take a deep breath. The air is so fresh when you're standing on top of that. So I think the entire experience is beyond sensational. It's more than just sunlight and the greens, the fresh air that you breathe in, the wall that you touch. There's also this form of memory echoing through the overlapping sounds. And these different layers of sensual complexity are actually forming up our Malaysians' daily life, which we don't often realize. And that's again showing that sensual complexity forms that relevance to us. And before I end, thank you, Architect Prince, for your invitation, and Architect Eric Chang, my tutor, for guiding me through, and my friend Kenneth for the 3D assistance. And I believe all of them are online. Thanks so much. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy this presentation.
Thank you, Kelvin, for sharing us your winning project. We are truly inspired by your passion and enthusiasm in the architecture field. It is now time. Sorry, Kelvin, could you stop the screen sharing so I'm able to show the slides?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay. So now it is time for us to move on with the final Q&A session with our guest speakers. So we have 10 minutes. So as I mentioned before, like our previous sessions, if you have any questions, do feel free to voice out or type them in the chat box below. So Azira will be reading the questions out and the presenters are able to answer the questions for you.
Thank you, Blair. Thank you to the anthology team as well as Kelvin for your really inspiring presentations. We have few questions from Crystal for Kelvin. First one is, it does look like a machine itself. Would you like to share further on your precedents and how did you arrange or simplify the complexity of forms that you have just mentioned in your last sentence?
Hi, Crystal. Okay, first of all, it looks like a machine itself. We'd like to share further on your precedents. Okay, during my research, I actually came across I think it was a graduate work from the Ballard School of Architecture. And I actually like the concept of how the scheme, like how they actually place human-centered design at first instead of a very usual user-centric design. Because for this Tunun weaving, the reason why it's fading away is part of it is because that the industrialization towards machine loom nowadays. And these machine looms actually bring a lot of stress to the workers. What I'm trying to say is that the working environment in a factory is definitely not healthy for all those stuff. And of course, a lot of like chemical dyes in the factory was being released into the river. And in the end, it caused a lot of environment problem. So I'm trying to actually turn this situation around by trying to actually make it more environmental friendly, and to make all the staff who work inside, as well as all the visitors who visit the cultural center, to enjoy the environment and atmosphere that is different from what they thought it would be in a factory. So how do you arrange and simplify the complexity of forms that has? Okay, so actually I did a few models to try out different mechanism and trying to put into the entire form. And I think when I arrange it, it's more of like, it depends on the necessity, whether like in this certain area, does it need this, this string that go across to actually transport raw materials from one space to another space? Does it require that? And then if it is required this, then I'll put in, and then I'll try to arrange it to actually have this complexity of forms in the end, which I presented to you. Yeah. I will answer the question.
Thank you, Kelvin. Hope that answers your question, Crystal.
Do we have any other questions from the audience?
Maybe we can ask the anthology team since we were curious about them.
I would like to ask the anthology design competition team, anthology live design competition team, one question. Because the project that you guys have done is readaptive reuse. So actually, as we know, Malaysia itself has a lot of like shop houses that are scattered all across our country. So recently there may be like a rise in this sort of like readaptive reuse where businesses that are catered towards the younger generation, for example, like boba tea cafes or like cake shops, using this sort of like the structure, the shell of this old shop houses as a way of business. So what I would like to ask is that, in your opinion, do you think this is a good representation of readaptive reuse, or is it sort of like not that great in a sense that perhaps these businesses, they are just using the typology of like old shop houses as an aesthetic with no relation to the cultural value? Yeah, so that's my question.
Okay, wow.
Kai, would you like to answer that?
All right. Okay, so because this is our first time working on this this title, which is the adaptive reuse, this kind of design problems. So for the competition itself, actually we tried to do something different in a way that to create something more contrasting. But then through the process of this designing,
we also learned that actually the real meaning of adaptive reuse, which is to use what you have, like what Bila just said, the shell of a building, and then to integrate the internal spaces to make it more functionable or usable for the new users. But then, as I was listening to the presenters just now, and I am actually thinking about what is contextual architecture itself. So is there a site that has the genius loci, or is it actually the genius loci is actually generated by users, and the users, they have their culture itself. So if the users have gone, what's the meaning of preserving the sense of the space itself? Because if we say that it is generated by the users and they have gone, who else is going to continue the essence of the space? So I was thinking, is it architecture we need to create a space, an architecture, perhaps a new typology where it can occupies, it can mean for all different users from now to the future. Yeah, that's what I have in mind. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Koi.
I think I'd like to ask another question as well. Any one of you can answer. How difficult is it to come up with presentation and design within 26 hours?
From a scale 1 to 10.
Sorry?
How difficult was it to come up with your presentation and design within 26 hours?
It is very, very, very difficult, as we have one tutorial session with one of the mentor, and at the very end of the day, which is around 6 p.m., and that's the cutoff time for our board submissions. So we have to generate our ideas quick and fast, and to get our ideas, research about the site, because we are at a different environment, and it's our first time in Philippines as well. So we barely know about the site itself. So yeah, luckily we have the support from our tutors, Mr. Prince, as well as Ms. ZE, and also the collaboration among ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you so much for answering that. Do we have any other questions from the audience? If not, I think I'll ask Kelvin one last question. Kelvin, do you have any advice for your juniors or any of us in semester 6 now? How can we win a competition?
Advice and more questions, in fact. No, I just wonder like how you guys actually work in this kind of pandemic situation.
Oh my gosh. Quite busy.
Okay, for the advice, I think I don't know, I haven't tried before yet, like without going to the sites, because I think to me it is very important to visit the sites, because that's the only chance you can actually feel the difference from what it was written online and what it was being said by the public, the other people. You know, you can find the truth yourself by go around and ask them around, stuff like that. So I don't know, I wish all of you good luck in your final presentation coming soon.
Thank you so much, Kelvin.
Thank you. And regarding the competitions, right? I think you just give it a try, because you wouldn't know what would be the outcome in the end. So I actually never expect that to win in a competition, but I was just giving it a try, and who knows, in the end, you know, I was selected for the presentations, stage 2, preliminary rounds, and all those things. So be confident with what you have done, and yeah, I think it will bring you luck in the end.
Thank you, Kelvin. Shall we continue, Philip?
Yeah. Okay, Crystal has a question, but it's for the students. Crystal, are you directing this towards the audience or are you directing towards the presenters as well?
Maybe our future presenters.
Directing it to everyone. Yeah, it's an open question.
Yeah. So would any of the presenters like to answer this question? Like how we could improve our virtual communication more efficiently during this process? If the audience would like to voice out their answers, do type them in the chat box. What do you think, Azi? How do we improve our virtual communication?
I think first of all, make sure you have good Wi-Fi connection. Yeah.
I think mainly it's also like don't be afraid. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think was it Natalie? Like she mentioned, like if even you feel like you don't have enough stuff to show during a tutorial session, please do not shy away, because even though you have like the smallest, the tiniest stuff, I'm pretty sure your tutors are able to help you out with developing your ideas. So please do not be afraid of your tutors whenever you find yourself like being stuck in a bottleneck situation, like you don't know what ideas can be used. So I feel like it's also important for you to have this discipline to be participative and I'll say in all those Zoom meetings or like Microsoft Teams during this pandemic situation. Just talk to your teachers.
And I think another thing is to always improvise. I think from my experience with tutorials with Mr. Prince, once I couldn't, my audio wasn't working, so we had to improvise and WhatsApp audio call for the tutorial session. So I think improvising is another method. You can always improvise on anything. Yeah. Shall we continue with our closing, Miller?
Yeah. So I think this concludes the end of our Q&A session. Thank you to the audience for asking questions, and as well as thank you to the anthropology live competition team, Crystal, Coyd, for asking questions, as well as Kelvin for answering the questions as well. So moving on, but before I actually invite Adi, who is the student organizer, to deliver her closing remarks, I would like to request everyone to turn their video cameras on, their webcams on, so we are able to take like a group photo in the form of a screenshot.
Okay, I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, and everyone smile. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm gonna take another one. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Okay. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us online today. Before we end, we would also like to inform the presenters and tutors that the certificates will be sent to your emails, and the recording for our event today will be shared on the SABD page. And with that, I would like to acknowledge and appreciate our student presenters from the Bachelor of Science in Architecture, Master of Architecture, respected tutors, guest speakers, and the organizing committee. We would also like to give a shout out to our Seniors Graduate Exhibition. The 2019 August batch of graduates are hosting a virtual exhibition called So Am I See on the 17th of July to 19th of July. Tune in to their website at taylorsartgrad.com to see their projects, events, and shop for merchandise with delivery options available. Support them by joining their software classes on the 25th to 26th July, or buy their graduate booklet with over 80 plus works on the website as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of the forum. On behalf of the entire organizing committee, we would like to express our deepest gratitude for your time today. We hope you find today's forum inspiring And remember to keep well, stay safe, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you for participating.
Okay, Azira and everyone. Okay, thank you. I'd like to acknowledge also architect Ian, who is a co-founder of the Future Thinkers. I think he is here. Ian? Okay.
He was here.
He was here, okay. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys. Well done.
Thank you. Bye.
Happy to see
Thanks
you.
everyone. Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, hi, Prince. I heard you. Thank you so much for acknowledging me. I'm so glad that Future Thinkers is now in its seventh run. And I'm sure you guys are really looking forward to the 8th run. Yeah. The only person I can recognize is Koi. Koi, how are you? Yeah, I remember your lovely little hamster wheel that went round and round. Yeah, that was really super.
Long time no see. How are you doing?
Yeah. I'm so glad that you're going places. And hey, when I'm getting my books, I ordered 2 of your books, so send them quickly.
Yeah. It's in the way. It's on the way. Yeah, we are working on it right now.
Yeah, and nice to see Suchi too, and Keith after such a long time. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm over in Sarawak. I'm a Sarawakian now, so where it's safer from the COVID thing. It's less people dying here, sort of thing.